fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Carolina, where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this .625-mile racetrack. Here's the starting lineup. On the pole from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the number 9 Coors Ford qualifying and Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison.
Georgia, Bill Elliott, straining car number 9 to bring it home. 10 car lengths, Bill Elliott, two-time winner of the Great American Race. Now the out-of-fuel Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt is going to win the Trans-South 500, his second win of 1987.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, no matter where you're tuning in from right around the world. Welcome to this, the Brickyard. For the Brickyard 400, one of the crown jewels in the NASCAR schedule. So we are going the full distance today in the NASCAR iRacing Series live on the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Ryan Jones. As always, Justin Prince joining me in the comms box and Jay Kennedy working the cameras in the director's chair behind the scenes. Justin, this is going to be a long, grueling race, but it is Indianapolis. It should be a very thrilling race.
Absolutely, 160 laps, 400 miles of action, and a lot of strategy throughout tonight's race. It's one that's going to test the fatigue of many of the drivers and test the endurance of drivers' speed, how they manage said speed, and how they play the strategy today, as well as how the rest of the race flows tonight.
Yeah, strategy is going to be a big key factor. Another aspect we have to consider that we haven't had to over the course of the season so far, Justin, is the tyre set limits being introduced to this series recently, limited to 8 sets of tyres, which over the course of a green race won't be an issue because that would be pitting every 20 laps in order to use those up. But if we get a string of cautions at any point, where normally you'd see drivers coming in for fresh sets, then we're going to have to see drivers staying out on old tyres.
It's going to be really tricky. There are 8 sets of tires in the pits, 9 total, including the set that will be on the car when the green flag drops. That's about a set every 20 laps. In theory, that's a lot of tires for the race. However, Ryan, depending on how this race flows, if there's precautions, let's say, for parts of the race, or it gets pretty crazy towards the end, that's where that tire limit can really come into play tonight. Keep in mind that's using real-world tire data and real-world tire limits set by the real-world NASCAR Cup Series.
Indeed it is. See there behind the screen, the little row of bricks, the last bastion that remains of this track when it was first built. Now it's tarmac, as you'd expect from a racetrack, but they are some of the most famous bricks in the world, if I do say so myself, and who will be kissing them at the end of today remains to be seen. We've got some very good drivers lining up in this one. A lot of our regulars from the NIS season so far looking to do battle, and qualifying is currently underway. This is how they look, with Patrick Moose currently fastest by a very slender margin over Tony Ball.
Now, Patrick Moose, a part of Nexus Esports, his team's been very strong to this track so far. Nathan Lyon earlier today ran a test race, in fact, in a open competition. Was really clicking the draft, was able to also pull away about half a tenth a second once he got into clean air. Nathan Harrison Lyon could be somebody to also keep an eye on tonight. As long as he's got the track position, he didn't have that in that A open. It took him at least 30-40 laps and multiple cautions to get himself to the point.
Wesley Pistol, he comes across and will stay 12th. Now, the package these cars carry means the draft is going to be mega at Indianapolis. The straights are in themselves mega, so going to be hard to break away through the early stages of this race while the tires are still at their optimal range.
And that's going to be the key, trying to break the draft, because it is especially difficult here. It can be difficult to pass as well, mind you, too, with the amount of aero push. But to put this in perspective, if you're side by side for even one set of corners, you can potentially lose at least half a second alone, Ryan. So if you fight too much, that can lose you the said draft and allow drivers to pull away, as Vicente Salas up to second and qualify, just 9 1/1000ths of a second off the pole.
Those top three are looking ominously close. Make that the top four, because Kyle Rhodes and Eddie Kerner, top five then. That tells you how much of this track has taken at close to 100% throttle, and the times are that close. It's something you normally see at places like Daytona and Talladega, where lap times are covered by under a tenth over that many cars. So qualifying concludes. Let's take a look at our starting grid for the NASCAR iRacing Series Brickyard 400. Patrick Moose starts on the pole. Vicente Salas will start alongside him. Tony Ball and Kyle Rhodes on row 2. And then Eddie Kerner and Guy Suela on the third row of the grid. Robert Miller and Seth Knoll starting from 7th and 8th. And then Dylan Alt and Riley Harvelson starting from the 5th row of the grid.
One of the SPG drivers, Austin G. Johnson, starts in 11th spot tonight, right alongside Keith Bridgman. Quietly been one of the quickest drivers in 8 opens throughout the past month or two. Larry Mulligan starts in 13th position with Joshua Campbell starting 14th. The last qualifier, one of the LaRue team members, Wesley Pistol. The rest of the field set for provisionals, electing not to set times. Michael Abrams, the streamer, looking to try and build up momentum for a Road to Pro run next season. Eduardo Oliveira starts 17th, Jake Hickson in 18th, Zach Hudson in our Nexus machine in 19th, Chris Wohlheit rounds out the top 20.
Yep. Seth Ryder, Ty Ippolito, Jonathan Hernandez, Michael Jeans, Wayne Burke, the sole Australian in the field, returning after Sonoma, where he got booted from the server, hoping for a better run of things today. Adam Benefield, Michael Baker, William Amshoff, Johan Cherie, and Ryan Carlisle make up your top 30 field, rounded out by Joseph Plant, Will Norton, Jesse Atchison, Harrison Lyon, and Joshua Adams. So that's 35 cards, all vying for that one spot at the end of 160 laps.
And this is one of the tracks you want to win at, to say the very least, Ryan. Not just because of the difficulty, not just about the 100% distance, but the prestige when it comes to racing at the Brickyard. So much history has been made here over its 100 plus years of racing action. And it's something that many teams look to try and cherish. And it's going to be a tricky one with the weather throughout the entire week. There's been mostly cloudy skies. those track temps could drop a lot as the race goes on and really test a lot of the balance of some of these teams, as well as the wind, especially with how much it's been gusty in some of the corners.
It's a hot track temp, isn't it, to start things off at pretty much the top of the afternoon at 2:30 in sim time, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So expect this one to be quite harsh on the tyres to start things off, and I'm sure the drivers will be hoping things do cool down over the course of the race. Keeping up with the car as the track changes is just as important here in iRacing as it is out there in the real world where they are running this week at Indianapolis. The Xfinity Series, the Cup Series, and the IndyCars doing battle, but Xfinity using the road course, we're keeping it to the oval today. And this should be a race that everyone wants to win because, as I mentioned earlier, it is one of the crown jewels of the season.
Yes, indeed. And as talked about, these drivers are going to be tested throughout these 400-plus miles tonight to try and show that. A lot of teams, it's been trying to make the right adjustments at the right time, Ryan, to keep up with the racetrack. That's going to be extremely important tonight, depending on when the clouds cover the racetrack and how much the track temperature changes throughout green flag runs.
Right now, the focus for these drivers is on the start and getting through cleanly to finish first. You first have to finish, and that should be at the forefront of every one of these drivers' minds right now, because it's time for 160 laps at the Brickyard. Patrick Moose in control of the field as he pins the throttle. Let's go racing from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Green flag in the air. Oh, look at them fan out down that back straightaway, Justin. It's been a good start then for Patrick Moose. He will lead them back around to the start-finish line. Salas in second, Tony Ball, Eddie Kerner, Carl Rhodes. Your top five, side by side there. The 33 stuck on the outside. That's not going to work.
Yeah, if you spend too long on that top line, even for half a lap as talked about, it can cook the tires and make them very difficult to try and deal with the rest of the run. So that's where you see plenty of drivers try and let each other go, then try and get right back in single file just like that to make sure you don't overheat those tires and put too much stress on them and in turn get freight train.
You see already everyone trying to stay in each other's draft is looking for a move up the inside. That was Tony Ball, just getting some clean air on the front end of his car. That's another factor too. When everyone is stacked up here together in a big train, the front of your car, everything starts to overheat. You have to make sure you get some clean air on the front end to cool everything down. Tony Ball did just that on the back straight. Now he closes up onto the back of Kyle Rhodes. Patrick Moose has done a good job to break away by about half a second.
Yeah, raced against Moose in one of the NIS Opens throughout the week in preparation for tonight's broadcast on Thursday afternoon. Was really quick when he had a clean race car, especially down the straightaways. That's been one of the keys for the Nexus machines. Their ability to, if they have to draft on somebody, they can really build up a lot of speed by the time they get to the corner to make a lot of passes. The difficulty again has been, though, keeping the tires strong on the long run in the corner speed. Some drivers are built more toward building up speed on the long run in those corners as the race goes on.
Yeah, there'll be a few different approaches to setups today, and there's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to building those setups. There's obviously individual drivers, part of teams, part of technical alliances, part of organizations running in the Premier Series, and they all come together to provide a setup that at some point will come good. It might not be good now, but biding your time is going to be crucial because it will work out for you. One of the drivers there for the brand new Elliott Sadler Esports team, running in 22nd now as Harrison Lyon gets down to his inside. That's Seth Ryder, the Elliott Sadler representative.
One other team drivers, Garrett Maines, leading in overall points on the season without drops, currently on vacation as of tonight. They said on social media earlier today, Ryan, that Vicente Salas and Seth Ryder looking to pull the flag for that team tonight. But already looking back towards the front again. Kyle Rhodes left by a couple drivers. Now he's looking to pounce back again. This time it's Vicente Salas he's trying to get by to keep up with some of the Nexus cars.
Good to know where Garrett Maines has gone. A name we normally see every single week in this series. Been a stalwart of it so far, but sometimes we all need a break, and he will take that today. He will come back stronger than ever. Here we go. Kyle Rhodes has got the run, and he's got the help. Robert Miller going to suck up to his back bumper, and 2 versus 1. You know which one's always going to win. It's a 2 cars down low. So Rhodes will take that spot. Miller going to try to fill the gap that Salas leaves on his inside. Isn't able to do it. And Salas will get away with only losing just the 1 spot, not 2.
Yeah, but here's the thing when it comes to the draft. We're seeing it right here. Once you get lined up, depending on how your car is built, you can pull in a couple tenths on some of the straightaways, if not about half a tenth. And it can really make it a struggle in some cases. But Kyle Rhodes' long run set starting to come in now that we're 5-6 laps in.
Is it a long run set or is it a short run set still at this point, Justin? It looks blistering right now. He's just gone by Dallas and Kerner in the space of a lap. Lap 6. How long are we expecting our stints to be today?
35 to 40 laps has been the runs, give or take. You can go as long as 40. Some drivers may short pit for 35 to try and get the undercut. And it is very powerful because the amount of fall off throughout the race could be as high as 4 seconds today, Ryan. However, there's an evening out period within 2 to 3 laps on difference of some of the tires around the 52, 53 second mark that drivers may look to execute to try and get some of these passes done to get out of the traffic to try and avoid Tony Balls, let's say, from scraping the wall in the dirty air.
Oh, he's hit it. Look at the right side of that car. The front right is pricked up just a little bit. So now, that might be one of the sections of the track. So you'll notice to the right-hand side of him now, it's concrete. And then the safer barrier comes into play through the corners. What might have happened there is he was running very close to that concrete. Safer barrier comes up. He didn't adjust for the slightly bigger area in which it protrudes, and he's just given it a little love tap, and he will be maybe going for an undercut strategy now because he wants to get that repaired as soon as possible.
Not only that, probably going to need a caution flag to get it fixed properly because any amount of damage on the right side is a parachute down the straightaways, especially as significant as it was there with Tony Ball. But here's something to think about too. Say there's door-to-door contact and you get left side fender damage. Talk to a couple of the drivers in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. If you hit it hard enough on the left side of your car, it will make it extremely tight on corner exit, and that will really hurt you to the point where not only would you be slow in the straights, you'd be slow coming off the corners and hurt your performance there. A lot of these cars keeping themselves clean, though. Jake Hickson now up to P12, a +6, Ryan.
He's done a fantastic job so far. Just made the move on Austin Johnson down the front straight into turn 1. Was side drafting him the entire run out of the final corner until we completed that one. Now, I think it's sometimes not talked about enough. When you see damage, it's always, oh, the straight line speed's going to be affected in that one. I don't think we ever talk enough about how it affects the actual handling of the car, Justin. As you just pointed out, if you hit damage on the left side, you get tight on entry. On the outside of the car, you're going to be understeering a little bit, maybe oversteering. So there's all these different factors that come into play, even if your straight line speed isn't affected, even if it's somewhere like Martinsville where you pick up the damage. Oh, what happened there? There was contact, and there they go. They're spinning down the back straight. Caution's out.
Terrible timing, terrible luck as Miller tried to hug the bottom side, but just barely. I think they hit the right rear to left front for Kyle Rhodes. And just ping-ponged right in the back of him, collected several drivers right in the process.
Here's the modem simulation replay. So we just saw a split-second image of this as they came through, and we saw here where the contact was made. And then up into the fence. He's almost got it, but then run over from behind. And the number 6, really unfortunate there to get a piece of that. That's Seth Knoll. And he's someone that would have been up at the pointy end for most of this race. That is disappointing for him. To finish off that point I was just about to conclude, damage does a lot more than affect your straight line. It affects you through the corners. It can then in turn affect your tire wear, which in turn ruins your strategy. So even just slight damage like that up against the fence for Tony Ball could ruin the entire race.
Exactly. And on top of that, it's kind of a blessing for him to get this caution to be able to get that damage fixed. He'll lose a lot of track position, though. That's the key. It's going to be difficult to get that track position as the race progresses again. It could take him potentially, Ryan, 20, 30 laps to get back where he was alone. And that's not including the fact that there's the chance that they run away and pull away for the rest of the group. So we'll have to see how this all plays out throughout this run as these drivers get ready to head towards the pit lane. Remember, short caution flag laps here, Ryan. Just a total of 3 pace laps.
Oh,
1
yes.
to pit, the 2 to go, then the 1 to green.
My favorite iRacing update in its history right there is introducing shorter caution periods. Everyone will come in, and this will be their first of 8 tyre changes. Now bear in mind, if we get a caution again of 10 more laps under our belt, then do you pit? Because at this rate, you're going to run out of tyres. So, first caution of the day, it's not surprising to see everyone down on pit road. They can get some changes done that need to happen to their car. But after this, start to wonder whether short green flag runs will breed these flurry of stops.
I think it's going to be more interesting later on in the race, specifically when they get towards the lower number, because that's where I've seen many drivers and many teams elect to keep the old tires on their machines, including at tracks, mind you, like Pocono and here at Indy, despite the high tire wear. Just take fuel and keep the set. That might be a factor later on, but for now, Patrick Moose, quick us off.
That number 1 pit stall is truly a blessing as well. Obviously, in real life, you can select whatever pit stall you want based off where you qualify. In iRacing, your qualifying order determines your pit stall, and number 1 qualifier gets a number 1 pit stall because it is the best place to be on pit road. Talk us through the advantages of being in that stall, Justin.
Well, first of all, less time or less distance rather you have to roll, but second, it's very difficult to get off this set pit road, and when you have that first pit box, and this is the importance of getting the pole, mind you, you're able to get off much quicker and be able to fight back compared to, say, someone who started in second with the second pit box. So as long as your pit crew is on point, Ryan, you're likely going to have the quickest stops of the day, majority of the day.
So Patrick Moose, as long as he keeps that spot, he is looking good, but we are not even 10% of the way through this Brickyard 400. We should see the 1 to go signal this time by, if I'm not mistaken. There's Kyle Rhodes on pit road and Seth Knoll coming out. Looks like both of them, never mind. I was going to say looks like both of them have got their damage repaired, but that car is still missing about a quarter of its front assembly. That's going to severely hamper his efforts. On a high-speed track like this, Knoll is now well and truly out of the running. If this was somewhere, say, a short track, that might not be race-ending damage, but unfortunately, this is the dangers of running at big tracks like Indianapolis. The slightest amount of damage is amplified as opposed to a lot of the other places we visit. 1 to go signal. Driver's going to stack up and rack up 2 by 2. We'll get this one back underway.
Yeah, and this helps a lot of the drivers who elected to start at the back. We've seen several drivers, 4 of them specifically, Ryan, who did not elect to put in a time and elected to have the very back pit stalls and start at the back. Will Norton's up plus 15, up to 17th after his big win Road to Pro just a week and a half ago. Harrison Lyons up plus 22 to P12. And a couple of the air drivers have also been on the move, including one of the former NASCAR drivers from the 2010 season who led laps here at this track when the series came here, Jesse Atchison, who's around the top 20.
2010. That is a decade ago. But shows you the longevity you can carry in iRacing. Still running the points here. Our director just kindly pointed out the fact that I was still in primary school 10 years ago. Thank you for that, Jay. Showing a longevity he's carrying, still running up at the pointy end of the iRacing service. This is top split of the 9 p.m. Eastern Friday time slot here in the NASCAR iRacing series. And it's about to go back green. Patrick Moose will carry us once more across the stripe of bricks as we go back underway. The green flag flies, and Eddie Kerner, a better restart this time from second place. Going to get a push from Robert Miller in behind him.
So 3 teammates all lined up, 1, 2, 3 at the point. Now the curious thing's going to be, though, where drivers like Garcia, who had that contact for the last incident, can he hold on? And how will everybody else fare? Because they're stuck side by side, multiple rows deep, including 3 wide at the back.
They all fan out down that back straight, just like on lap 1, trying to find a way by and find the road line down into turn number 3. That's number 8, down low, struggling to find the speed as they run up ball with Jake Hickson. He's got a car to the inside. It's that big bright blue machine sit in that very tiny left-hand side mirror refraction there. Now he falls backward on the front straight with no one in front to help pull him along. Speaking of pulling along, remember the gap that Moose had over the first stint? Well, now he hasn't got it because Eddie Kerner went with him on the initial start.
Well, again, those are teammates, so they get, depending on how the arrangement is, nearly identical count to make sure they can get cleared. The thing is, on that jump, Ryan, Vicente timed it up perfectly, that the second they hit the gas, he went off on the gas too to leave the rest of the top 5 off and running the top 10. So that's actually still helped out the team to be able to keep the top 3, but also helped Vicente now get that big buffer over to the 33.
Robert Miller as well was very quick off the jump. And as soon as I highlighted that Kerner went with him on this lap, Patrick Moose has put his foot down and pulled a very handy margin. He runs a 50.5 and Eddie Kerner runs a 50.8. That's a big disparity after just one lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things to think about too in this disparity, not just with the speed down some of the straights and the ability to pull, is with how the racing's been this week, with this package, we're seeing for one of the first times in green flag conditions to the point where you can nearly max out the tape. The maximum you can have in an open setup is 80%. Majority of the top teams have been able to run at that very high point to where if they manage the temps the first 10 laps of a run, hold in the clutch on corner entry, then their temps usually sit around just 260-ish on the oil temp. So it's something where drivers have been able to find that extra little speed to be able to pull on the straights and keep within the draft, let's say, if you're more preferred for the corners.
You just saw there, Dylan Alt was able to slip by Guy Sealer. Keith Bridgman and Jake Hickson are lined up just behind as well. And that orange machine, that is Harrison Lyon, or Nathan Lyon, as he sucks up to the back. Look how powerful that draft is. To the inside he runs. This is the slingshot maneuver. Good news for him. He's got tow now from Keith Bridgman as well. So that's an easy move down into turn 3.
Yeah, Nathan Lyon's just not waiting to try and get this track position. He's trying to get as many spots as he can. And if he, say, gets a caution about 15, 20 laps, puts him in even tires, guess what? He can be able to then save once he gets towards the top group. So that's kind of the benefit of being up at the front. The difference is the Lion, he's been having to push essentially from the drop of the green flag, but has the car to be able to do it with how quick it is in a straight line.
getting those left sides down below the white line too at turn number 2. No one else around him doing that, so he's maximizing the track at the moment and doing a good job of it. Austin Johnson going to pick up a spot here. It looks like that number 8, that bright blue machine, that's Michael Abrams, is struggling. He was challenging on the first lap of the restart, but he's only falling backwards since then. He's stuck on the outside too, which is just making matters even worse.
Yeah, and you can see right now Abrams is just in that grouping of wanting to stay in a line. The problem is, the line's all trying to freight train on the bottom side. Out of Benefield, former driver of the NASCAR Cup Series, Seth Ryder, and Jesse Atchison just like that. That's how important the bottom side is. If you try and fight it, yes, you can defend line, depending on how well you go in the corner and how much you try and squeeze. The problem is, how much give will the driver below give you? And in turn, how much will your tires be screaming after doing it for half a lap?
Something I expect we'll see when we get towards the final stint of this race, trying to pinch drivers down, but right now it's too much risk for too little reward this early on as we race around. Look at those grandstands, nice and full. Seating capacity of this place is 270,000, largest sporting venue in the world, and always a sight to see when it is full. Unfortunately, we won't see it this year, but at least iRacing shows us what it does look like.
Kind of curious how the race is going to go here in 2020 for the Cup cars. You mentioned the Xfinity Series 2 is on the road course. I think a lot of eyeballs are going to be on that when that happens in a few times. But keep in mind, you see just in front of the group, Harrison Line, he's ditching everybody 6th on back. That's how quick that machine is.
He's got the pace, I think, to match Patrick Moose, because Moose has got a 1 second margin. He's run away from Eddie Kerner. Oh, this looks lively. That's 3 wide down the front straight. In behind Michael Abrams. And they all sort themselves out down towards turn 1. Good job there, as they all slide across each other's nose as their lines converge mid-corner. So Kerner's lost out on 2nd, by the way. Robert Miller was able to get by him. Now he's under all sorts of pressure from Vicente Salas as well. So his car's starting to fade away as the run goes on. Harrison Lyon, his car, just continues to get quicker and quicker.
And this is where it gets interesting, because is it trying to back up the corners and save the tires? Or is it the aero push starting to factor in and burn up the right front? It could be either or, depending on how the car's set up and the time of the run. With how hot it is, it's actually been throughout some of these races from experience, Ryan, on the tighter side. The colder it's gotten, the looser it's gotten. In the past, with previous tire models, at this time last year, it was the exact opposite. Just shows how much things can change in the span of a year.
Oh, that was close to the fence there. On the outside of 2 abreast. 2x2 down into turn 3. So Harrison Lyon's pace, he was almost half a second quicker than our race leader. Now bear in mind, he is getting an almighty slipstream from the drivers around him, but it is highlighting the pace he's got. Meanwhile, this is a very hot battle. 7 cars under a blanket right now.
And this is holding all of them up with how much they're fighting in this group, mind you. This entire pack last time by ran in the 53-second bracket. The leaders, they ran in the 52s. A full second loss just with how many drivers were side by side. They're grouping up the track though. Fastest lap and fastest driver Harrison Lyon. And at this point, drivers are just letting Lyon go, knowing how much of a rocket he's got.
Going to be interesting as the run gets towards the end, whether, if we get there, whether his stuff starts to burn up at a higher rate, whether he's using up the tyres to get track position now, or whether the car is geared for these short to mid runs, or whether he's got a rocket underneath him full stop. All these answers still in the air as he makes his way to second. And there's a change of position behind as well. That's the 26 getting by the 24. It's Adam Benefield now on Keith Bridgman.
And look at that. Traffic in front, and Bridgman nearly bobbled his way onto the grass. Some of the Nexus drivers have been hearing rumbles on the radio who have been pushing this entire run to get up to their teammates. Norden now a plus 25, Jesse Atchison a plus 21. And in the middle of this grouping, mind you, is still Jake Hickson, who's still within the midst of the dirty air.
That Nexus team, one of the strongest on ovals, has a lot of good drivers in its stable, and we always see them running towards the front on the NASCAR iRacing Series nights here on a Friday. Jake Hickson currently running 10th, watching as ahead of him Keith Bridgman leaves the door ajar, and that's all the invitation that Guy Sealer needs to slip up the inside.
I'm honestly surprised how well Guy's been running. This is the best I've seen him run in a long time in an NIS. Usually, in the top split, we've seen him maybe top half of the field. Whatever that team's done to find speed, it seems they have dialed it in perfectly to just continue to hold on to where he's been on the racetrack.
.7 seconds the gap. Now that Lion is in clean air and not getting the benefit of the slipstream, his times have normalized a fraction and only running a tenth quicker than Patrick Moose last time by. Not quite the half a second he was picking up earlier on in the wake of Salas, Kerner, and Miller. So the top five have pretty much spread out. You look further down the order to find the rest of the field all very congested at the moment. Down the back straight, about 7 different lines being run throughout the field, and then it forms to just 2 lines into turn 3, one of which is much better than the other.
Absolutely, you see right there just how much again. One groove, you lose the bottom groove, you sail off to the back of the grouping like Chris Wilhide is here. His car falling off better in the first 15 laps of a run throughout the week. Putting him up for grabs for some of the Gen X machines, some of the drivers for Underground Esports, and various other teams who are just trying to fall onto the choo-choo train.
So Justin, you are a half-decent driver as well. We've seen you running in these races earlier on in the season before you joined the comms box. Oh, Hernandez, wow, that was a very fast closing speed. Hello, who's that? The 25, straight through the middle. Wayne Burke.
That's Wayne.
Hello, welcome to the party, Mr. Burke.
Well, that's what I call taking advantage of an opportunity, but you're saying, Ryan.
So obviously you've run in a lot of these races. You ran in the Thursday race, I do believe, the Wednesday race, or one of the races. How did you feel the track changing over the course of the stint?
It was the Thursday, but at the start of the race, didn't feel quite the best, but surprisingly, compared to some of the other drivers, felt like the car was stable as the run went on and as the race went on, to the point where when we had one long green flag run with the pit stop to the end, that's where the car was the best. For me personally, though, was the struggle of trying to get by some of the drivers once you get to the top 4, because again, depending on how your setup is, sometimes you can drop by, sometimes you're better in the corners, and in turn, it was a strategy game, to say the least, to keep the track position, to put yourself in position to win the race for the entire 160 laps and 400 miles. You're, say, back in 10th spot, you may get held up for 3-4 seconds, your chances are gone unless you get a caution.
And this is why we're seeing so many drivers trying to get track position early. You don't want to be left with it all to do when you get to the end of the race. Get it done early, save up your stuff, be in a good spot when that final caution drops. Expect a final caution to come somewhere close to the end of the race, you know, in the region of 30 to 40 laps at max, I'd say. It's the nature of these races. They always heat up, and the chances of a caution raise astronomically the closer you get to the checkered flag. You've got to set yourself up for those scenarios. And having it all to do when you get there, running outside the top 10 is not the place to be. Harrison Lyon showing us how it's done. He's done it early. Now he's cruising in second. He's saving the stuff up, and he's in clean air by a country mile.
Yeah, technically you can also put Harrison in that grouping just at the very tail end of the draft for Moose, if that. Potentially at some track fit up to 2 seconds, but some of these air groups, they've continued to fight like they have been fighting for the race lead on the last lap. That's how intense it's been, and the more they fight like this, the more this entire group's going to fall back and burn up all their equipment. And it's going to be more and more tricky to be able to get to the green flag pit stop if, say, you're down to the cords nearly on the right front tire.
These guys are scrapping hard. This is a big train for 24th place about. You see them all vying for spots. They're about 15 seconds off the race lead. It's been about 15 laps since we went back green, so they're losing about a second a lap on average. Luckily for them, this is a big track. You're running lap times close to a minute, so they won't go a lap down. But what they could do is put themselves in a scenario where if they pit, they cost themselves a chance to stay on the lead lap. Which eliminates a few strategy options.
Exactly, that's the tricky part when it comes to Indianapolis. If you are a certain amount of distance back, you will get pinned a lap down until, say, the leader at that time comes down to pit. Here's the problem. Many times, Ryan, that's been the case for some drivers where they came for green flag pit stops, then the caution comes out a lap or so after they come to the pit lane. You can maybe stay on the lead lap you're within 15 seconds. Anything more than that, you risk going a lap down if you have a bad pit exit or just coming off the pit lane in general.
And it is a really long pit lane at Indianapolis too. It goes the entire length of that main straight, which is quite big, and the exit bends all the way around turns 1 and 2, and you don't rejoin the track until right about where he is now on the exit of turn 2. So you lose a lot of time down there as well, because you've got to fan the throttle to make sure you don't accidentally throw yourself in the grass between the pit exit and the normal racing surface.
From what I've seen throughout the week, it hasn't been too much of an issue for drivers compared to when there was the low downforce package. At that time, Ryan, it was like trying to ride an ice rink on some of the pit exits down that access road. But they've been very plenty. Keep in mind, too, it's 60 miles an hour down the pit lane. The pit entry, though, has been something some of the drivers have been able to gain half a second to a full second on, depending on how hard they charge the corner exit in the dive down to the pit lane. While others, they elect to be nice and calm, and that's where some drivers tend to lose some time, while others could gain it. And that comes down to confidence.
Hey, this battle for 25th place, I've been watching it. Some of the best racing on the racetrack at the moment. They were 3 wide into turn 1 on that lap. Somehow they've sorted themselves out and single-filed themselves out. You see there the car without the front nose. That's actually Seth Knoll, and he's running with them. So the damage he picked up is limiting him to this pack, but he has got the pace to fight with these guys right now. And so he's mixing it up. Wayne Burke is that car who's just sort of holding it between these guys and the next group of 3. He's got Seth Knoll pushing him along. They've just sorted themselves out on this lap as soon as I brought attention back to them, as is the way.
Looks like Knoll feeling like he's faster than Wayne Burke. And I find this interesting because Knoll, again, does not have a front nose. And I think that's why he's trying to break this draft so aggressively, to make sure he doesn't give the toe to the other cars behind. But the natural pace of the Nexus machine in the corners is what's getting him these positions back on this long run, because the drivers around him have fallen off much more in clean cars than he has in a damaged car.
Yeah, well, one would imagine his straight line speed by himself would be pretty shocking because, well, most of the air is going into the car and not over it, pushing it down. So, curious that he's able to maintain speed at the head of the train. But yeah, that cornering speed is one to be envious of for all those guys around him. Back towards the front then, the battle up inside the top 10. This is a big train. Will Norton at the back, Vicente Salas, Adam Benefiel, Eddie Kerner, Robert Miller. So it's pretty much a battle for P3.
Yeah, Benefield looking nice and consistent. He's been working with Steel Horse Racing in several different runs in several different leagues this season in the fixed side. They're working as well with this technical alliance, trying to get back into the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Look very nice and calm. The question's going to be, though, how long can he hold on with a slowly closing back on in Will Norton, who's up the 7th spot, closing up to these drivers.
When do we restart? Lap 12-ish. So we're about 24 laps into this stint, expecting something in the region of 40 laps. If you're going to go for the undercut strategy, Justin, when do you start eyeing off that pit entry?
In about 10 laps or so, that's around the 35 lap mark. Could see some drivers elect to come down then. Expect many of them to try and stretch it as long as they can in case they get a yellow flag, as well to make sure that they have the freshest tires possible. The risk, though, is for some teams in the final 5 to 7 laps, depending on how their setups are, they can have a cliffing point where the tires reach that from a 60 to 50% mark and get really tight in the final 5 laps. So expect some of them to go over the 35 laps. Contact up the road. Vicente Salas nearly hitting the back end. I think tapped the back end and demolished his front nose after Benefield pushed tight.
They escape without anything major, but a scare there. And Salas in 6th. How's the right side look? Looks like the right rear might have a slight crumple to it, but other than that, he looks good to go. Another lapped car they'll navigate by as Kerner and co sidestep. That is Kyle Rhodes, who was the culprit of that initial caution. Is a replay as well of that issue.
You can see Vicente Salas is starting to build up some momentum coming off some of the corner exits. But right here, Benefiel starts pushing tight, has to get off the gas, nearly slaps the wall, but Vicente follows his way up in towards that wall, hits his back end, crushes in the front nose, and scrapes in the quarter panel as well. Now Vicente Salas may be in trouble for much of this race unless he gets time to fix the damage, because that can cause overheating problems now.
Indeed, he's going to have to be careful of that. Now, Eddie Kerner is starting to work his way back forward on the inside of Robert Miller. He completes that move, so back into 3rd place. Now, his car may be starting to come back to him. Remember the great launch he had going with Moose for about a lap, then falling away. Well, now he's got a spot back, and I'll keep an eye on his lap times here in the clean air to see whether he's running anything comparative to Lion and Moose, who, to update, that gap is slowly closing down. It's down to 1.3 seconds now. It was 1.7 when Lion got himself into 2nd.
Yeah, they have just fallen off like rocks at this point. I think amongst this group, I expect the Nexus drivers to at least come in staggered 1 to 2 lap difference on their strategies, give or take. Because again, we're talking in this run alone, more than 3 seconds of fall off for the lead cars. Even more so for the mid-pack. And it looks like pit stop now for Kyle Rhodes since he's now multiple laps down. This may be near the end of the day for the 32.
Yeah, that might be retirement for him. That car is not healthy, and I don't think it's getting any better. Dylan Alt, Michael Abrams. So Abrams continuing to tumble. I think this car is just continuing to go away from him as this run goes on. So he might need to make some wholesale changes down on pit road. What sort of changes can you make then, Justin, when you're on pit road?
Well, you can adjust the tire pressures to adjust for specific portions of the corner. or to try and make sure you're trying to balance that out, try and make sure your tire doesn't overheat at a specific point of the run, as well as to try to adjust, say, where the contact patch may be, depending on how much PSI may be in the tires. But as well, there's the spring perch adjustment that changes the chassis and how that car will drive throughout the said run, even depending on the tire wear. So drivers may adjust that to be a little bit more looser, adjust the skew in the back of the car, and adjust the rake, and try to make sure they balance out, say, the straight line speed or the corner exit based on how the track is. Now keep in mind, some teams prefer the tire pressure route because the chassis side is more permanent, Ryan. Well, with the tires, it depends on, again, just how the run fares, and you can easily take it out compared to, say, with the chassis. You can still take it out, yes, but you don't know how it's going to then respond after.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, all these changes, they're relatively, I guess, minor compared to what you can do in the garage. So if you completely miss your setup, you are playing catch-up all day long, and to be honest, you might never get there. So arriving with the right setup to begin with is absolutely crucial. Practice is paramount, and we've seen that in real life this year. It's the best example of it. If you don't have practice, it is so easy not to have the right setup on. We've seen some of the competition's best drivers struggling because they're just missing those setups, and this is why drivers here put in hundreds, even up to thousands of laps between them to work on the setups.
There's a reason the ballpark is 1,000 laps per week to set up a really fast race car, because NASCAR teams go at least 1,500 to 2,000 laps. So they go through a lot of testing, through a lot of practice runs from multiple different drivers, mind you, to get as much data as possible, to get as much feedback as possible, get telemetry depending on how that team is set up, to get the car as quick as possible. So again, it depends on different teams because there's different philosophies for different setup builders for how they build the cars. But that all factors in as pit stop for Joshua Campbell.
Campbell was running towards the back, so he'll rejoin last on the lead lap now. Just look at the lap times for Eddie Kerner. So he's running pretty comparative to Harrison Lyons, so he's got some decent pace now underneath him, but he is 3 seconds back. Don't see him closing before the stint comes to an end as Michael Abrams works his way up a spot for the first time in quite some time. That's Guy Sealer. He's just got by.
It looks like Abrams got a little bit better, was tight on some of the corners and some of the dirty air with more cars. But more drivers in the pits. Benefield just ducked down to the lane. Riley Halverson also ducking down. Had to come down during the first lap behind the pace much of the race.
And this is about that time you earmarked seeing drivers coming to pit road for the undercut strategy. Now the undercut's going to give you massive gain. So let's just use Patrick Moose as our reference. He is running a 54.1 last time by, and his fastest lap of the race is a 50.5. So he is the better part of 4 seconds adrift on his best lap. So you get an undercut, you spend 5 laps out there, you're gaining, you know, about a lot of time. You're getting heaps of time out there. But the issue is, when you get towards the end of the stint, it goes against you.
That's the thing. And that time's eventually going to fall back, and still Benefield has been in there for a long time. That is more than a minute now in the pit box. Something going on with the 26.
Only just taking the tires now, so curious indeed. If you were out there for 5 laps on fresh tires, it would give you a 20-second advantage. I thought that as I was saying it, and then I didn't say it because it seemed like an astronomical gain. But with the drop-off we have, you can gain that much if you pit 5 laps early. But the question is, can you then save your tires to not suffer the reverse at the end of the stint? The drivers that can undercut and then save their tires, they're the ones that can play the strategy to a T.
I think based on the fall-off, it's really tricky because the faster pace based on the amount of fall-off here, again, on 5-lap difference could be up to half a second. I think it's more realistic within the 3-lap mark on the undercut for some of the teams. That's where they try and ballpark it instead of trying to go as long as possible, because in some cases, I personally tried this a couple times, Ryan, where you go to the end of the fuel stint and then take the tires. By the time you get towards the cliffing point or the evening point on your tires, you're 10-15 seconds behind. So you just can't go too far on the overcut compared to the undercut.
On board the pit stall, running in 13th place at the moment. You've got to commit yourself to coming to pit road very early as well, coming out of turn 4, because it comes up very quickly. You can't get from the outside of the track to the pit lane and slow down. So you've got to commit early, and that can also sometimes bring issues, because you can't really afford to lift off through turn 4. You've got to get all the way around the corner and off the race line before you dive onto that brake pedal.
And there's different philosophies, mind you, in how you enter the corner. I think a lot of these drivers are going to drink the brakes at the very minimum on the long run. On the short run, though, there's been different points where drivers have been letting off the gas. Some let it roll. Others drink the brake for a second, let it coast, then get back on the gas. Others go half throttle on the short run until the middle of the run. It's basically setup preference, driver preference on how you want to run the track and how your car lets you run the corner.
Eduardo Oliveira even. That's Joshua Adams going by him. Now, Adams is already pitted, so he's got those fresh tires, and his car's clean too. But the bad news is he's a lap down.
Yeah, if there's a caution, this is going to be putting him in a bit of trouble. But here's the thing. I think part of the reason Adams may have thought about that was he was in that grouping around 24th on back, was he not? If he can pull away with the evening point or get lucky with the foul off, and if they fight again like they had when on the even tires they have, there's a chance he jumps them by the end of the cycle, and I think that's what he's hoping for.
Yeah, exactly right. Often when you pull an undercut strategy or you stay out under a caution period, everyone goes, what are you doing? You're not going to win this race. You're not trying to win the race. You're trying to gain an advantage based off where you are at the time of the gamble. For him, he's going to find a big gain if things stay his way. Jonathan Hernandez has just retired from the race, so that's another one to the retirement list. He will join Tony Ball down there in the garage.
Yeah, Benefield's also staying in the pits now for almost 5 minutes. Could also put him in that box, but Keith Bridgman just made a scheduled pit stop. He was just in the top 10, so pit window's open for the undercutters.
It is. Expect we're about 5 or so laps away from the end of the stint. We restarted on lap 12, so getting close to 40 laps here. Robert Miller working his way forward late on. That's Vicente Salas just ahead of him in between himself and Eddie Kerner. Will Norton, he quietly crept up, didn't he? He's up in 3rd place. He's got by Kerner.
Yeah, and Will Norton's been trying to position himself for this moment, get himself the track position, be up with the rest of his teammates, and potentially then catch up to Patrick Moose and Harrison Lyon. I think he's got the pace. He had that underdog victory at Darlington at the Road to Pros side we mentioned. He's also been strong at a lot of these NISs throughout the campaign, but it's still 4 seconds to Patrick Moose and Harrison Lyon as there's the pit stop.
Moose is in pit road. The gap had come down under a second for the first time in the entire stint. He brings it down. Robert Miller is going to come with him. Jesse Atchison also to the lane, and that's another one behind as well. You can see how hard the drivers have to brake to get it down to the pit road speed limit. And a long run down the pit road. So, hit your marks, don't slide through, because under green flag conditions, if you slide through your box, it is a massive mistake.
You can lose tons of time already. Several drivers having to back up. That was Robert Miller backing up. We also had Will Height also have to back up several times in his pit box in the 17. And that's going to also help a little bit here with Harrison Lyon. Some of those drivers he was trying to keep in front of for this stop, Now going to lose time, and looks like he's going to stretch another lap or so on the fuel.
And this is a good example, too, of you need to be close to the leaders when you pit, because there's Moose coming out of turn 2. He was the leader of the race. Harrison Lyon is coming through turn 1. So, you know, once you get 10 seconds away, you lose the lead of the race. The lead lap, I should say, of the race, which, if the caution comes out, traps you. That's why being in a good spot, getting that track position is so pivotal at Indianapolis as more drivers come to pit road. Harrison Lyon, Eddie Kerner, Vicente Salas, they're still all out on the racetrack.
Pit call just coming from Eddie Kerner, in fact. He's coming this time by. And already Atchison catching up to Harrison. Nathan Harrison Lyon, I should rather say. But part of the factor to think of too, yes, he sacrificed in time, but something to consider with the 80 lap NASCAR race here just this week. There was a 2-lap overcut call from some of the drivers. They were able to reel in the race lead. That partly became the factor for some of the drivers to win the race and beat Ray Alfao after he went for the undercut run.
We'll keep an eye on this then, because this is 2 laps since Patrick Moose pitted, and there's 5 drivers on pit road now. There is Moose coming through turn 4 now. Oh, he's hit the fence.
Oh, and that's not good. In clean air, too, so that's going to hurt him a little bit on the straights. Might not be as bad as one car sliding. Oliveira nearly spun it around in 10th spot.
Well, let's look at the replay of Patrick Moose. I think he's escaped without too much damage. He should be fine, but that will have raised the heart rate. He needs to not make that mistake again, because he's extremely fortunate that didn't do more damage. He gave it a solid hit too.
Could have been much worse, but Patrick Moose able to cycle now 6 seconds ahead of Harrison Lyon. And a couple other drivers still at the pit. The Elliott Sauer Esports machines. This will put Patrick Moose still up in the lead.
Dylan Alt, he's in 10th, so his pit stop cycles gained him about a spot or 2. Everyone has now pitted, with Michael Jeans signaling the end of the pit stop cycle. So expect the next stops to come around lap 90. And that will give us a pretty good stint to the end, actually. Lap 90, lap 130. And then you make it home from there.
With plenty of tire sets to spare, mind you, if it stays green and if you get cautious towards the end. Well, let's talk about how powerful that undercut we mentioned was. We mentioned Joshua Adams wanting to get away from some of the traffic in his battles. His undercut was strong enough to get to 12th, Ryan.
That is very good. Now he's got to make sure he is conserving those tires. He can afford to lose a couple tenths a lap. Well, not even that much. Well, he can't afford to lose that much. He won't want to, though. But he can afford to, because look at the gap he's got over the guys he was racing. Now, if he does that for a few laps, he brings his tires back towards the windows of where the guys who pitted later are operating in. Patrick Moose as well. He's got his gap out to 5 seconds. It was down to about a second before he pitted. So the undercut working very well for him to get himself a bigger gap. For now.
Mind you, too, getting held up with a bit with traffic, and this has been a trouble spot. If you reach traffic at the wrong spot, it can lose you a few tenths a corner from having to back up with the dirty air, and this is Zach Hudson, one of his teammates, mind you. That is just up the road.
Well, Hudson is still on the lead lap for now. And once you go a lap down, you're in a really bad spot, because yes, you have the lucky dog up your sleeve, but as soon as someone else goes a lap down, you're constantly playing catch-up, trying to keep that lucky dog spot. So for Zach Hudson, yes, he might be teammates with Patrick Moose, but at the same time, there are no blue flag rules in NASCAR. So how hard does he want to fight? How badly does he want to keep himself on the lead lap here?
I don't think he's going to fight too much because the downside again with the corners is the dirty air. But the bright side for Moose is he's getting the toe down the straights to try and counter that a little bit. That might be part of the idea there. But here's the thing. Moose is losing 0.3 a lap to Harrison Line already throughout this run on just that difference in tires by 2 laps. I think eventually when they equalize, that's where Hudson lets him go because Hudson's only on 2 lap time. Is on 3 laps to set up record tires.
Vicente Salas here, working his way forward. Pit stop cycle wasn't kind to him. Dylan O will lose one of the spots he gained through that. And Salas puts himself up into 7th place now. Next car up the road is a second away. That's Jesse Atchison. His pit stop phase was pretty decent, gained him a few spots. In fact, Eddie Kerner's just drops down the order on the leaderboard. Looks like he's having a few technical issues there, actually.
That's going to make it scary for his competitors. He's already lost him some spots. Going to have to hope it stabilizes here, and that could also disrupt the dirty air even for some of the drivers, depending on how close they get. Speaking of close battles, looks like Adams already back to 17th since the last time we checked in on him.
Wow. His last lap was a 54-second lap time. Wow. That is a massive drop-off that he suffered. He's only been out there now for... He's been out there for a long time, actually. 14 laps. And he's running a 53.9. If you look at our race leader, Patrick Moose, he's been out there for only about 8 laps. And he's running a 52 flat.
And so, mind you, we're hearing that that car is loose. And that might play a little bit of sense here on why he's staying in this line was get the aero tight to try and maybe balance it out. That's the only thing I can think of there for the time being until the tires equalize. But Adams at this point, there's a chance his fall-off gets to the point where he actually loses the spots he was trying to undercut. It's still a 12 seconds back to that group, though.
Would you want a loose car or a tight car?
Depends. If I'm in the draft, maybe the looser car. If I'm in clean air, oh boy, buckle up. So it's kind of a mixture of both, where you want to have the speed in the clean air, but you also want to have the handling for the dirty air to be able to then pass the cars to get the clean air.
Obviously, the loose condition means that the car's turning more than you want it to, which can result in the rear end overstepping through the corners and you start to spin. You hit the wall with the rear end first. The car's tight. You're going to hit the wall with the front end first. The car's not turning enough. Either way, you're going to hit the wall. That's the takeaway from that lesson.
Hitting the wall is not good.
Yeah, it's just with which side of the car you hit it first.
If you hit it with the left side, then you're doing it very wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, left side in the wall first equals very bad. Now, Joshua Adams, his tumble continues. Ty Ippolito will go by, and he finds himself running in 18th place, running a livery that seems very akin to some of the Penske liveries we see. Hopefully, that's a representation of how they're going to run this week.
And don't forget, Roger Penske owns the track.
Oh, yeah.
So, kind of important to perform well here in all the cars that are on circuit this weekend.
Recent acquisition, too, wasn't it? Last year, Roger Penske buying Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think it is a good thing overall. Penske heavily involved in motorsport around the world, from NASCAR, IndyCar, to supercars here down under. And now, Indianapolis Motor Speedway strengthens his ties to IndyCar, who, of course, got their namesake from this very track.
and it was huge for the sport, mind you, to have Roger Penske because it brought a lot of change in that. I think in part brought the encouragement to have the road course racing here at this track for the Xfinity Series. And there's talks of it, potentially more of it, and more races, mind you, on the calendar for NASCAR and IndyCar here in the future, with Penske leading the charge.
Wow, look at this gap then. Remember we highlighted it was a second before he pitted, and it was 5 seconds afterwards. Harrison Lyons brought it back down to a second. He is flying. A 52.416 for him, 52.48 for Moose. So lap times are starting to equalize, but they've equalized at a point where he's got everything back he had.
Yeah, this might have really bad for Moose, as that was the second quickest lap of this run for Nathan Lyon, mind you.
Actually,
he's closing it quick.
I said it was a 52.4 playing a 52.4. It was actually a 53.4 for Moose. He was a second quicker last time by. Half a second quicker on this lap. Now he's going to start to get some of the dirty air through the corners, but he's going to get the toe down the straights. I don't think this is going to be much of a fight. I don't think Moose is going to be able to overcome this significant extra speed Lyon's got right now.
You've seen how quick he was in the first 20-30 laps of a run, Ryan, when he was in deep traffic. I think this is spelling trouble now if you're Patrick Moose, because the tire strat to try and go for the undercut's not working. This might lose him some time, in fact, to not just Lyon, but potentially allow Will Norton and the rest of some of his air teammates back into the picture to try and take away second by the end of this run.
You're exactly right. So Will Norton's 4.4 seconds back, and then 6.8, 7.1, 12.4. I think Moose is pretty comfortable for a top 3 spot by the time the stint wraps up, if we stay green. But as soon as Lyon gets by and starts to pull a gap, well then it's just going to get bigger and bigger over the course of the stints. Here he goes. Easy as that. New race leader, Harrison Lyon.
Not even a chance to defend that. Wouldn't be even smarty. Wouldn't be smart to try and block that here with the tire difference. I'm just sitting here wondering, where was this pace for the NASCAR race on Tuesday?
Lessons learned, setups changed, perhaps?
Great point, because in some cases I've seen drivers tweak their setup and then try and show they could have had pace on the Tuesday by then dominating the NIS. But teammates are starting to scrap. That's Robert Miller and Eddie Kerner now going back and forth.
Don't know if Kerner's just got the spot or he's trying to fend off the charge. No, he just took the spot back from Robert Miller. So these two are battling. There is a very wild car behind them. About 2 cars back from Robert Miller, that white one. Riley Halverson is battling with Chris Wilhite for 26th place. This is the fight for the Lucky Dog spot. We saw in the back of the shot when you first picked up Kerner and Miller, he was darting right down the concrete wall and back again to try and defend this spot. Wasn't able to keep it.
And the reason they're doing that, mind you, is to try and break the toe, because with the recent updates that happened at the start of the month, Ryan, it was seen a lot at the NIS for Pocono especially. It actually does make a difference now. In some cases, it would scrub speed climbs. Now, if you time it up right and have a good enough run down the straight, you can actually pull a 10 by taking away the draft from your fellow competitor. That's why you'll see some drivers really be aggressive with trying to break that slipstream and block.
On board with William Amshoff. Rating in 14th place right now, Amshoff. Started this race from 28th, so he's found half of the spots he needed to get to the front since the drop of the green. He's running behind Wesley Pistol at the moment. He's got company though because Seth Ryder, unbeknownst to us from this shot, is right behind him. There he is.
Only 1 lap fresher tires compared to them, and a little bit of right side damage, mind you, for Ryder in that number 2 machine in the back drum.
Speaking of damage, Patrick Moose. That may be another explanation for his severe lack in pace.
Well, we did see him touch the wall, remember, on the exit of turn 4.
Yeah.
So there is that potential of being a bit of a parachute.
We sort of failed to mention that after that contact which we saw, because it does feel like this tyre disparity is a bit bigger than it should be right now from just 2 extra laps and continuing for this long. There's no visible damage, but the slightest knock can have an effect.
Yeah, I think that as well as the handling, we're seeing how much he's been bobbling off some of the corners with how loose it is from potential adjustments maybe. Just has been handling well, but on the bright side, he's evened out with his teammate to try and get by him finally.
Johan Charette, 23rd. That's Wayne Burt behind him. And these are the final cars on the lead lap, 23rd and 24th, 48 seconds off the lead race. The third car in line there is Jake Hickson. He's 31st. He's a lap down.
Only 24 drivers on the lead lap, mind you, and that number could go down fairly quickly by the start of the next run if it continues to go green. So for trains like this, the pressure's on to try and get whatever spots you may can without sacrificing too much time. If not, just stay in a line, work together, try and draft with one another and keep away from the rest of the group there. Still 6 seconds up the road from Hudson, who was the first driver lap down. And Lyon is currently about a quarter of a straight back. You see him in the backdrop in the Oscar Mayer car.
Yeah, these guys desperate for a caution now. If they don't get one, they're going to find themselves falling away from the lead lap and playing catch-up for the rest of this race. Patrick Moose, his lap times are starting to come good. Now just 0.8 of a second between himself and Harrison Lyon. So potentially now finding a bit of normalisation in that car. Tight Polito in 18th place has got Ryan Carwile right up in front of him. Right off the 17th.
Polito's starting to slide back actually in this group. They just made the pass this time by Carwile did. But look what's how the car is behind him's been doing. Seth Noel, we talked about that long run pace for how they've been doing in the corners. I'm shocked. That car's been so good on this run. Yes, it's losing time to the leaders. But again, the amount of fall off it's had has not been as drastic to everybody else. Seth right now, 54 twos. The car's in front around 54 fours.
I'll be interested to see how his car performs if we get a caution and the subsequent restart as to how many spots he could potentially gain or how he fares when everyone's on even tyres, because, as you mentioned, very impressed with how he's running at the moment. Now, here's Michael Baker, just behind the timing tower there. There he is. He's in pit road. It's up 72. There's no notable damage that we can see on his car, and he's going to get 4 fresh tyres. So, don't know about that strategy. What are your thoughts on that one?
The only thing I could think of is Baker and his team may be thinking of it to go maybe 30, 30, 30 to the end. That's the only play I can think of. Otherwise, that is extremely early. Just 20 laps on those tires, as you mentioned.
Well, he's 2 laps down, potentially just hoping he comes in now. Caution comes out before everyone else pits. He stays out, gets a lap back. Something along those lines, trying to play a funky strategy to try and get a lap back, because when you do get more than a lap down and you fall away from the lucky dog spot, even if you're a lap down and not going to get the lucky dog, you've got to try something to get back on the lead lap. Because if you just keep circulating with everyone else, the caution comes out. Yes, you can stay out and get the wave around, but then you restart and you've got, 20, 30 odd lap worth tires, and you're going to find yourself going backwards very, very quickly towards the clutches of the leader again. So you need to try something. Baker there, potentially doing just that.
And just what the nature of how the races have gone in NIS with some of the cautions and some of the periods. This is one of the longest ones the entire week, yes. But the time of the cautions just line up to where that's a concern. About 30, 35 laps on average have been the distances in some of the stints at the mid to first half of a race. So it's absolutely going to be a concern at this point for some of these drivers that continue to circulate and lose more and more time to the leaders and risk going a lap down, because give credit, though, to Austin G. Johnson on the screen. He's quietly worked his way back in the top 10. Remember, he got freight trained by 7 drivers on the first stint.
Doing a very good job right now. Running in 10th place. Eduardo Oliveira right behind him. In terms of lap times, Johnson is running last time by. He ran a 53.740. And he's been pretty consistent around that lap number for quite some time now. And it's only a couple tenths off what Harrison Lyons just run. And it's equal, in fact, to Patrick Moose. It's a decent pace.
Curious how, if he got to the qualifying position or didn't have as many drivers force him off the bottom of the racetrack, 2, 3, 1 at the start of the race, if he'd be a bit further up by, say, 5-10 seconds maybe. This big machine looking pretty sporty.
Speaking of qualifying badly, Will Norton and Jesse Atchison and Harrison Lyon, the 3 drivers that you wouldn't even know started from 32nd, 33rd, and 34th respectively. They've flown through the field early, and it now feels like they've been at the front forever.
Yeah, but Will Norton, I think, just clipped the wall, just maybe a touch, maybe just avoided, but does still have a bit of fender damage regardless. Still, though, was kept even on the pace to his teammate. And they're actually starting to reel back in Harrison Lyon now that Lyon is in the traffic and having to pass by those respective cars. So this is the evening out point I talked about.
Yep. Flip side, Harrison Lyon catches those cars and passes them. Well, then Moose and Norton have to get by them. But you often find it's often the leader that gets caught out the most, because oftentimes the lapped cars don't realize they're about to get lapped. Once the leader catches them, they realize, move out of the way, and then they're alert for the next 2 laps, and everyone else is able to get by without issue.
It's not just that, it's more so the timing. If you reach them down a straightaway, clear them by corner entry, you're fine. If you go side by side, you maybe lose a tenth or 2. If that lap car doesn't move off the bottom on corner apex off, that's where you lose gobs of time. Patrick Moose just had that where he lost 7 tenths because Burke didn't move off the bottom, had to check up for him. Now, all the time gained, lost, just like that. There's that back and forth as here comes more traffic for the battle for 10.
Right in front of Johnson, that is Halverson up top, who loses out. Might have just pipped the fence there. That will have made Oliveira's heart rate skip a beat or few. He gets by without issue. He does lose a bit of ground, though, compared to Johnson. Slightly frustrated with that. Halverson running the 27th place now. Now quite a few spots away from the lucky dog. Remember, at one point he was fighting for that position. Currently occupied by Wayne Burke. Joshua Adams is about to be that car.
Second, just about the exact position where he was right before the pit stop line.
Yeah. I think for him, if a caution had have come out about halfway through the stint, he would have been golden, because everyone would have pitted for fresh tyres and he would have found a gain. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out that way, and so he will maybe try to normalise his strategy. The issue for him is he pitted so early he's almost made the bed, and he has to pit early again, because otherwise his tyres are going to completely drop off a cliff.
Yeah, it's now a tough sledding situation where I think he has to go and try and go for the equalization point. That's the only thing I can think of here. But this trained driver, Toledo, in one of the racing machines, staying within the draft for a while, and still, Seth, without that front nose, has been able to gain time on the corners, and with the draft, has stayed about even with these cars.
Doing a good job, isn't he? So 19th place, we've seen him running here for quite some time. Started 8th and was left with nowhere to go when Kyle Rhodes spun up off turn 1 to bring out the first and so far only caution of the day. He got into him relatively lightly, but it was enough to knock off that front end, and he's unfortunately been on the back foot ever since, and might be able to get himself up into 17th on this stint. Joshua Adams, 22nd. Last pitted 35 laps ago, so he's actually getting towards the end of his fuel window. He's going to have to pit soon. He's about to go a lap down too.
And right at halfway to Ryan.
The good news for these drivers of this massive green flag run we've had is they've got a lot of tyres up their sleeve. They've still got 6 sets waiting for them down on pit road, and only 2 more scheduled stops. You don't want to get yourself into a situation, Justin, where we get a few late cautions, you use up tyres, and then you get to the last caution, and you find yourself with no tyres. The guys around you have 4 fresh ones, and it's a dash to the end. You're going to find yourself severely hampered.
Absolutely. Still, though, I think they're in decent shape to have tires to spare. In fact, tires galore. The pace they're going and how clean the racing's been. Not too many aggressive moves by some of the drivers. A lot of give and take, some of the most give and take of the entire week. And then that first caution, it's just been clean sailing from here.
Lap 82 of 160. We're just over 200 miles through at the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Crown jewel. One of the crown jewels of the NASCAR season. One of the 4 full-length races for the NASCAR iRacing series. Harrison Lyon, the man to beat right now. 2 seconds back to Patrick Moose. 5 seconds to Will Norton, Eddie Kerner, Robert Miller. The top 5, Jesse Atchison has driven through the field well to run in 7th. And plenty of other stories throughout the field, both hard and good luck.
Plenty of the drivers and plenty of the teams definitely had to be taking notes of this race car right here. With the speed that Lyon's been showing in this race, the question's going to be, when the NASCAR Cup iRacing Series, mind you, goes to New Hampshire in a couple weeks, will Lyon be able to bring that speed over there? I think that's what a lot of drivers are looking at, to see what this car has that's making it so quick to be able to just run away like it's been in the first 20 laps every run.
Yeah, whatever they've done to that car is working a treat. Obviously made some changes after the NASCAR race on Tuesday. And Joshua Adams here comes down to pit road. We expected this. Pitted very early and now has no choice but to pit early again. This time, if he gets a caution halfway through the stint, he'll benefit. But again, if he doesn't get it, he is going to find himself continuing to go further and further backwards. Someone else to pit road. That's Michael Baker, is it? No, it's not. That's Keith Bridgman, I think.
Yeah, that's the 35-lap stint, so looking like he's trying to gain a little bit of time in positions by maybe 4 or 5 spots here.
Hickson has DNF from this race as well. So he joins Hernandez, Benefiel, and a ball, and Kyle Rhodes. So 4 drivers have retired from this race, which is not a bad number. That's a good number for halfway through. Been very clean so far, touch wood. At this halfway point, Justin, as a driver, having run a really big stint, knowing you've still got half the race to run, there's no sign of a caution to come as of yet. How's the mindset start to feel? Mentally, what's the battle like?
I'm thinking I want to get a drink of water. Part of it. But 2, it's exhausting to run this many laps at this hard of a pace for some of these cars. You're likely going to be in a pile of sweat with how focused you have to be this quick in this type of a split. So at this point, the mindset is just keep the car clean, get it to the finish, try and get the best run you can, and try and plan out the strategy the best you can, as it looks like the Nexus strategy is opened up, partly because it looks like Miller might have a crushed in right side.
So he pits from 6th place. He'll get 4 fresh tyres. He last pitted on lap number 51, or lap 50. So it's been 36 laps for him. The car does look like it's got a bit of damage. See how he works out. He was about 15 or so seconds away. So he may find himself up inside the top 3 here at the end of this pit cycle for a moment. Harrison Lyon is in a world of traffic. We quickly cut to him. Look there. He just found his way by Wayne Burke, who's on fresh tyres, going to come back by him. Ippolito and Seth Knoll, he's just passed. Robert Miller's just come out of pit road, so he'll go back by him very quickly as well.
Almost looked like Wayne just elected not to go far on the gas, lifted a bit, and just elected to stay behind. I think he knows that, again, Lyon has to pit. So being cautious here is look at this scramble.
The issue is, he's on fresh tyres, he has to make use of them. Can't afford to just sit behind the race leader, otherwise there is no point pitting early. Wayne Burke is throwing his strategy down the drain.
Here's the concern, though, too. I think it just partly is the straight line speed, too, because Burke only topped out at 188. Lyon topped out at 191 on all times. That car is fast, and I think finally Burke might get a run as we look at the battle for 14.
Yeah, while he was doing that, Robert Miller has sucked right up to the back of them as well. This is the battle right in front of them on the racetrack. Lyon just lost both spots to those 2 fresh tired cars. His gap is 2.2 seconds back to Patrick Moose. Expect Atchison in on this lap. He pitted 38 laps to go, running in 6th place at the moment, 18 seconds away from the race lead. Watch for his rejoin to be somewhere behind Robert Miller, as Seth Knoll also heads to the lane. There he is, he's in.
Rest of the driver should be in about 2 to 3 laps or so, give or take. Austin Johnson rather than 7th spot also expected this time. This is where the give and take comes into play.
Yep. There is so much opportunity to gain coming into pit road, but you can lose so much as well. Patrick Moose from 2nd place, gonna pull the undercut again, compared to Harrison Lyon as wow.
That was Dylan Alt. I think he didn't want to pit, but Will Norton did and just floored it. Or rather, he did pit and didn't want to sacrifice the time. That could have been trouble as we take a look at the moment simulation replay.
See there, the slow car in front. So this is old versus new. Right there, see, that's the issue I spoke about very early on. You have to stay on the throttle all the way out of the corner. Otherwise, issues like that can arise. That was mostly because of the old tyres, but you get a car to your inside, how do you get to pit road? Luckily, Alt cleared him.
That could have been trouble as Moose comes in. Riley, that car behind the 30, also gave a shot, but rest of the Nexus machines have pit. Norden was able to get the faster stop, though, on Moose.
The week, well, I expected him to come out in around that top 3 with the undercut he had. See how long he can keep it for, though. Robert Miller, referring to there, he will jump Norton as well. So Moose had a bad stop. Norton comes out ahead of him. The undercut car of Miller comes out ahead of them both. So Moose lost 2.5 seconds in the lane compared to Norton.
Obviously a mistake made at the very least on the pit box entry. And it's so easy to slide the tires when you try and hit the brakes at the 60 miles an hour. Same thing we see at tracks like Daytona and Talladega, which have similar pit road speeds. Very difficult to get in and maintain the speed. Line, though, is in.
So the race leader to pit road, that's going to leave Eddie Kerner, Vicente Salas out on the racetrack. Kerner takes the lead of the race. He was very close to the back of Harrison Lyon. Now, Lyon, he's going to rejoin behind Miller. So Miller should take the effective lead of the race for a moment. And Lyon's going to find himself somewhere behind Miller, probably in the region of where Patrick Moose is after his slow stop. So this is going to be really tight. Here's Miller on the racetrack. He's just found a...
But this is extremely tight. Kerner coming this time by, but there's Lyon on the access road.
Sway
Miller
by a lap car.
There he goes.
So suddenly it's very tight at the top. Robert Miller will lead the race effectively for about a couple hundred yards. Robert Miller then going to come under pressure from Will Norton as he pulls to his inside, and he won't fight him. He'll let him go into turn number 3. Norton then takes that spot away. Moose and Lyon find themselves running effectively 3rd and 4th, still waiting on Salas and Kerner to make their stops.
By the way, bad news if you're a fan of Riley Halverson. He elected to full throttle it into the end of the pit wall at the pit entry and nearly flipped on top of the 34. That was about a lap or 2 ago. Ryan Carwell, though, able to keep the car clean, able to dodge the flipping car.
Days of thunder it, just drive straight through the smoke and hope for the best. So the race... Go ahead.
The only thing is, the pit wall was the thing to dodge, and you're not going to dodge it at 160 miles an hour in a straight line.
No, it's an immovable object. So, race shakes out after the second pit stop cycle under green, continuing this mammoth green flag run. Norton is the race leader. Harrison Lyon, Patrick Moose, Robert Miller now falls to 4th, so his undercut starting to fall away from him. Going to be interesting to see how the tyres work out between Lyon and Moose. Expect both of them to pass Norton. Lyon had the lead of the race. Moose has been quick. Now that he's right behind Lyon and on tyres that are relatively similar, can he stick with him?
Well, remember, Moose is on the same strategy as Norden. They came down together. Just Norden had the faster stop, so they're on the same set for their lap. But we've been green since lap 14. It's been a long run with the various different strategies. It's still, though, simple. It's a one-stopper to the end on the fuel, caution or not. And that's got to be going through the drivers' heads with just 5 sets of tires remaining, plenty to go. I think at this point, though, it's going to be curious how Lyon plays this. If he saves for a bit and then pushes, or if he just tries to go down this as a caution's out.
Eddie Kerner, the culprit. and damaged the front right. He spins it and brings out our second caution of the night. Motor simulation replay gonna tell us what's happened. So all by himself, there's a slow car. That's Keith Bridgman up in front of him. And was there contact? Oh, I'd say there probably is. Out of turn 3, that's tight. Oh no. And then the contact sends him up into the fence. I think technical issues partially to blame there.
I think the technical issues we talked about with Kerner was a factor in that, where I think Bridgman didn't realize that Kerner was already to the inside. He was trying to get the space, it seemed, there, but the problem is, when you don't know where the car is, there is that difficulty of being exactly where you need to be, and I think Bridgman just didn't realize that Kerner was side by side for that split second.
So now, we've been running, what, 5 laps since the last pit stops? You've got how many sets now? 5 sets down on pit road?
Yes.
Pit?
I think at this point you do. With a lot of, some of these drivers are 10, 11, 12 laps into a stint. This really helps Robert Miller get back into the ball game. Will Norden now with the track position.
Joshua Adams. Remember, we talked about him needing to find a caution sometime between, you know, around 20 laps after his pit stop. He found it 14 laps after his stop. He's in 17th, so he finds a gain, finally.
And with the time of the yellow just stayed on the lead lap, just 20 cars can say the same at the very least.
Now, I think the next 60 laps of this race are going to play out completely differently to the last 96.
Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit crazy. Because, yes, we're still outside the window to make it on the fuel, but drivers know they have tires to spare within some. So it might mean a lot of aggressive moves, since it'll be just the second time, mind you, in a long time. They'll be starting side by side on a restart.
Everyone comes to pit road, but Vicente Salas made a very late decision to stay out. I think that might be the wrong decision.
The only thing I can
Wayne
think of,
Burke
again, track position.
will get the lucky dog. The Aussie will skip his way back around to the lead lap.
This is going to get very intriguing, as off and away, just like that as expected. Norden first off the lane, Lyon in second.
Worked out well for Will Norton, didn't it? He was going to lose the lead to Lion and Moose. Caution came out before it happened. Now he finds himself on exactly the same tyre strategy as those guys. And this equalizes for everyone, even guys like Joshua Adams, who dug a hole where he was having to pit 15 laps before everyone else, is able to get back on the same strategy. Now everyone's even. We expect pit stops. One more stop required to get home from here. So somewhere around lap 140 is the end of this pit window. You can pit as early as about lap 120 and make it home. But you've got to leave yourself room for the green-white checkers. We could potentially have potential for 3 of them if required.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely a factor towards the end of the race, absolutely. But some teams may have elected here on this stop or going to be on the next stop. Potentially underfuel the car and adjust their car to that way, because we've seen how long the straightaways are. With how important the slipstream has been in the draft line this entire race, that can give the advantage of having extra speed straightaways if you're loosening it up to then counter for the corners, because you have to account for less weight in the back end. There's a lot to think about for some of these teams, and the strategy card is wide open on that front. When the drivers pit, we may see pit stops in a range of 15-20 laps now because of this caution flag if it stays green.
I think this race is going to get turned up a notch now. There's a lot of different ways you can make it home. And there's damage to the front of... Is that Salas's car? It is.
Yes. Remember, we've seen him hit the back end of the 26 machine.
Yes, that's right. Wonder if that's going to affect him. And remember, he's on 5 or 6 lap older tyres for this restart too. Opted to stay out. So he might find himself struggling here. I don't know if staying out was the right strategy, but either way, he's made his bed and he's got to stick with it now. There you go. 5 laps to go, he pitted. So the pace car's going to get out of the way. We're going to go back racing. Our second restart of the day is Vicente Salas in control of the field, going back green at the Brickyard. There is just over 60 laps to go. Green flag back in the air. Norton spun the tyres up, and that's checked up the outside. Harrison Lyon will clear him through turn 1.
And not a good jump, absolutely, for that top line whatsoever. Curious how quickly Lyon gets the back into Salas and tries to set sail, because everybody else will then have to deal with him after.
Three wide, down the back straight, in the middle of the pack. Salas right up front, under a lot of pressure from Harrison Lyon, who closed right into that back bumper before they reach turn 3. He should lead this first lap, but Lyon is coming. Here he comes to the inside. First lap of the restart will be led by Lyon, so Salas doesn't even get that one. Back to the front, and that surprises no one.
Exactly what I expected, absolutely. Now it's going to be the question, how quick can Norton, Moose, and company go? Because we talked about it. 6 total laps, including the pace laps. 3 green flag laps on those stinted tires. Yes, they can even out in about 10 laps or so, but Salas is going to be up for grabs for some of these spots right here, right now.
Oh, Norton struggling for stability there as he looked low. Didn't work out. And rear end almost stepped out on him. We've passed lap 100. Look at Seth Knowles' car in the background there. Easily spotted with the missing front bumper. Remember I asked a question quite a few laps ago, how would he go on a restart? Back on the same strategy as everyone. So far, holding his own in 18th. And there's Adams in 16th.
Looks like Salas lost the bottom quickly to Norton, though, and that was expected. One of the things that was tweaked during the last build update and has been big at the big tracks, side draft. You'll see a couple drivers try and get to the quarter panel to use it. Some drivers have been wary of it so far, but it looks like Moose wants to use it to his advantage, trying to get that back left rear.
Salas actually moved into the side draft then. He pulled away from the wall and closer to the front right of Moose's car and accidentally side drafted himself backwards. How the side draft works is it doesn't speed you up, it slows the other car down. You know, giving you the impression of going faster. Robert Miller going very much slower. He just... it wasn't Miller, so it was Atchison in front of Miller, who absolutely slammed the fence out of turn 2. That will have done significant damage.
Yeah, that platypus machine not going to be the happiest, to say the very least, as Salas done for the race, DNFs.
Wow. Potentially a tech issue there as he retires from the racetrack, quite literally. So half a second cover your top 3. They've broken away from everyone else, scrapping hard for 4th on back. That's a train led by Dylan Alt in that 4th place. Robert Miller, Jesse Atchison right up in behind him. Harrison Lyon not able to break away early on. Now that's crucial.
Yeah, some of the adjustments I think that Norden and Moose may have had and some of his other fellow teammates for Nexus, they're starting to come into play now that they're even footing. It also, mind you, can be a bit looser the colder it gets with the cleaner air. The track temp has gone 8 degrees Fahrenheit lower from the drop of the green flag and is going now more down as the clouds cover and the wind is starting to spike and make it really tricky in 1 and 2, especially if you're, say, in the draft with Seth Ryder here.
So cool track temp means faster lap times. As for a handling perspective, car's going to be gripping up a lot more as it adjusted.
Now to the point where there's almost too much speed. And it's gotten with some of these conditions where drivers actually want to go the tighter route to make sure they don't snap the car, especially if it leans almost like on the left rear tire. Keep in mind the wind swirling. Anytime the clouds are over the track, they've gone to as high as 9 to 11 miles an hour, gusting behind the front stretch grandstands and blowing their way towards the back straightaway. Once the sun comes out, the wind has calmed down and then has been off and on from there. So the sunnier it is, the better conditions for some of these cars, such as Michael Abrams now will be in.
Abrams has had a tough race. He's been slogging it out so far. Seems to always find himself going backwards, but now is going forwards and runs the 8 car in 8th place. Just got by Seth Ryder. Next up is Atchison and Oliveira. Another caution out. And that looks like Joshua Campbell potentially involved. Johan Charret as well.
And that was nearly the very back of the field, in fact, in the battle for what was 23rd-ish? No, 23rd, and then the last place car, Campbell with the spin. You can see Campbell got a bit of a run. Mind you, some drivers did take the wave around, including the 29. Well, Campbell, he's been pinned a lap down for a little while now. Got the run to the bottom side, but not enough space given. Just clips the left rear, bye-bye.
Did he have a snap of oversteer there, actually? Because the car definitely bobbled before that contact was made for Joshua Campbell. And it might have been a snap that sent him up the racetrack. Here you go, watch the onboard here. As he goes to turn it in. It was actually initial contact that flipped the car up a little bit. And then the secondary contact sending Charret around.
And most drivers don't expect you, in some cases, to send it right to the bottom of the racetrack like that. So I can see the exact line the 29 was trying to do there, but it can also be very tricky where some drivers will try and surprise you. That's in part where we've seen Johnson lose all those spots, Ryan. That was where Atchison did the same thing to him. And that's where Johnson, in turn, lost a lot of spots. Most drivers expect you to wait until the entrance of 3 or down the straights.
Yeah, well, that's the dangers of trying to get it done. Now, pit road. Looks like Harrison Lyon going to drag the field with him.
I mean, you've got sets of tires to spare. May as well use them, right? We've seen how rough it was for Salestein on just a couple lap older tires. So at this point, you're not going to see those gambles. We're still outside the fuel window, yes. But can see a lot of drivers trying to stretch it on the fuel to the very end and bank on a caution now.
We saw Chris Wilhite fighting for the Lucky Dog spot about halfway through our massive green flag run. He now finally gets the Lucky Dog after a second quick caution. So he'll get back on the lead lap as the race off pit road will be won by Harrison Lyon. And I reckon there might be a speeding and pit lane penalty for one of those cars. It was, I think Oliveira looked very fast as he came out of his pit bay.
Remember, though, it's about the different sectors of the pit lane. And Mia just timed it up to where he was able to gas up to 66 miles an hour, then get to 60 right at the timing line. So it doesn't seem like...
Yeah, he wasn't fast at all. He was doing exactly the limit. It was actually the guys around him going slow. So Dylan Alt was very slow, coming up to speed limit, and Patrick Moose was still coming up to speed, so it gave the impression of him speeding, but no, he just judged it perfectly, got it up to the speed limit incredibly quick, and hooked it there brilliantly. It's a good stop for him.
Highest I think he's been in this entire race, too. The best track position he's had. And jumped a lot of drivers, and mind you, some of the Nexus machines. Miller elected to take damage, repair this caution flag. He's now back in 14th position. So a couple drivers sacrificing that track position to think big picture to make sure they have the fastest car possible. Oh, and by the way, Seth Ryder's up to 6th with this call.
Some big movers. Now, who stayed out, if anyone? No one. So everyone's come in. Now they've got 3 sets of tyres left. This is where this new rule is going to start to get interesting because we've still got 50 laps to go. We are still approximately 10 laps away from being able to pit and make it home. So if we get a caution in 15 laps time, you have to come in because you can make it home from there. And if you stay out and we stay green, you're in trouble. And then you've got 2 sets of tyres left. And there's 40 laps to go. You can see a lot of different ways that could play out. So this is where the new limit makes things very interesting.
According to my math, some of the teams may still have 4 sets, mind you, too.
Yes,
So
some people have stayed out.
Yep.
Some people have stayed out over the course of some of the caution periods and pit stop cycles. Everyone still running in this race, by the way, back on the lead lap. That's 28 cars.
That puts, though, Joseph Plant, Michael Baker, and Joshua Campbell in a spot where they need a quick caution because they're all the wave-around cars we've seen at the front of the field. So they need one in fast because they're going to be essentially forced into the undercut strategy if it does go green, depending on how this pack races itself.
It's the Brickyard 400. It's got just 52 laps left to run. Shaping up to be an enthralling finish. As Harrison Lyon gets us back underway, the green flag will fly. Let's try this once again.
So a bit of a better start for some of the Nexus machines in that second row. But already that 13 getting shuffled out to the top side by just about everybody trying to line up.
That's Oliveira. Finds a gap in line, but he hasn't got the momentum. That's going to allow Dylan Alt to pull to his inside. Side draft just a little bit. And preferred line into turn 3. He will prevail. Behind him, there's contact. He gets turned. Hooked into the fence. Collected by Moore. Big incident through turn 3.
Carwile nowhere to go. Bridgman now demolished with that. Seal also demolished. Wow.
He slid up the racetrack as he made that move. And Oliveira was already high up the track at the time, and as he tried to turn into the corner, found the right rear of Dylan Alt's car. Behind him as well, there were cars sliding up the racetrack. Look here. Completely misses the apex and spins straight back out onto the racing line.
Look at that. I think that was Miller who just avoided the calamity right here. But Eduardo, I don't think was going to give a lot of give, so to speak, with how much speed was carried and how much he was pushing up the racetrack. He didn't let up the gas too much in that.
This snowboard shot from Keith Bridgman. Wouldn't have had much notice about this. Trying to keep it as low as he can. And in the end, still couldn't get low enough. He got hit about 3 times in that. That's taken out a lot of good cars.
Yeah, a lot of the mid to small size teams, mind you, too. Like F5 Motorsports involved with that one. Several other fast drivers. Now it gets intriguing. Not long enough to have anyone come down on this stop, to say the very least. But have a couple more of those, and we get to the point where some drivers may elect to stay out if it continues to be precautions now.
Hopefully we get another green flag run in. A few drivers come to pit road. Some of them for damage. $50 laps to go then at the Brickyard. Johan Chiré, Joshua Campbell, Larry Mullican, Keith Bridgman, Dylan Alt, all on pit road. Most of those drivers having to repair some form of damage after the big wreck here at turn 3 with just over 50 laps remaining in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway crown jewel of the NASCAR season. Top spin of the NASCAR iRacing Series. Once again, putting on a show, and it is Harrison Lyon, Nathan Harrison Lyon, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver, putting on a performance out front.
Yeah, that car has been extremely fast in the draft all race. The longer the runs have gone, the better the car has been. But as we've seen now that everyone's bunched up, they've been able to counter that a little bit now. Keep them within their sights. So the question's going to be, will that maintain the situation, or will Lyon be able to make adjustments to bring back that pullaway effect? And mind you too, if it goes green and we don't get a caution precaution, who hits first may determine who wins this race, based on how some of the races have gone throughout the week here in Indianapolis.
Well, we've seen the undercut work well, but then we've seen the overcut come back very strong. So a green flag run to the end will give us a very intriguing strategy game with just under 10 laps remaining until you can make it home as well. So we could see drivers pitting very early. Could see drivers running this tank all the way dry. What's your strategy play as a driver here, Justin?
Well, it depends on the damage situation and the track position you gain. If I'm towards the back, I'm stretching as long as I can. That'll put us in a spot where you need to top off, say, at 10 laps to go. But if you are in the top 10, I don't think you can afford to stretch it. I think maybe pit at around 25, 20 laps to go, and go from there is the call. That could win some of these drivers this race.
So, 2 by 2, we roll once more. Cautions coming in thick and fast in this later stage of the race as tensions start to rise and drivers start to look to put themselves in line for a shot at the win. This is one race you do not want to let slip. This is a race where a race win feels very special. One of the few full distance events of the NASCAR iRacing Series calendar, and there is a reason for that. It is grueling, but it is special. So Harrison Lyon looking to convert another good restart here into a gap. Gonna hold them quite some time this time by. Green flag back in the air, and that is a very even jump from your front row.
Top 4 again, able to get off the jump, but around William Arnshoff and company did not go. There was some contact between them, Johnson and Miller, that may have damaged a couple of the front ends on some of those cars.
Top 4 single file, 2 by 2 there on back. Lyon already trying to shake that draft. Michael Abrams, by the way, is up into 5th place. done a good job to sneak up there.
Well, he's done the important job. Keep the car clean. And if you do that, track position comes to you as more drivers get more damage. Atchison, for example, who had to get the damage repaired 13th. As up towards the front, here comes the fight.
Norton, Seth Ryder, very close. Patrick Moose watching his mirror as they battle. Top 4 have a half a second breakaway over the rest of the pack. Michael Abrams leading Oliveira in 5th place at the moment. Everyone biding their time, I think, until this pit window opens. You've got to get yourself to your pit stop. And then, once you've made your stop, you know you can get home, turn it up.
Curious how aggressive Moose and Nolan go here as teammates here with this draft. Or if we see Seth Ryder try and drive by some of these machines. Lyon isn't as quick right now as he was in the early going into this race in clean air.
No, he's not. He's potentially made some wrong adjustments on pit road. Or, now that tyres are equalised, he's finding his advantage isn't as big as potentially had been thought. It is potential to be super fast and then fade away as the track changes. You've got to keep making changes to stay up to date with the track, and very easy to make the wrong ones. Look how close your top 4 are. 0.3 of a second as they cross the yard of bricks.
I'm going to be surprised to see if the temps and the tape rather is extremely high on some of these drivers for them to start clutching, coasting a little bit. Not to save fuel, but to make sure they don't blow up. At the back of the field, Wayne Burke just blew up, mind you, so this is an absolutely real concern. Several drivers in the NASCAR race communicated on the radio after around this many laps that they were trying to cool the engines whenever they peaked to the left side of the racetrack.
Yeah, so watch them down the straights, notably the main straight and the back straight. So out of here, Lyon's going to want to be shaking the draft. Everyone behind him is going to want a little bit of clean air heading into their front end. 4th car in line, going to make a move. That's Seth Ryder pulling to the inside of Will Norton, making it stick through turn 1. That's one way to get clean air, is make a move.
Just a little bit loose there for Ryder on the exit, but I think he was getting a little impatient with the drive. Here comes Norton, though, for the fight back.
Doesn't quite have the run to make that one work. Has to fall back in line behind the Elliott Sadler eSports car. Can Seth Ryder get a victory for this team who have burst onto the scene and taken many NIS Series victories since their inauguration?
At this point, my favorites, Lyon, Moose, Norton. The pace has been... I think, though, Norton really wants to get back Seth Ryder again. He's just trying to be patient because they lost a couple car lengths on the initial pass. If he times it up wrong, they can lose the entire draft of the top 2 here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Seth Ryder rear end stepping out of turn number 2. And he darts to the inside, try to save. He does. And that allows Will Norton around to his outside, trying to sweep the long way at turn 3. Doing a good job up top to keep the momentum. And I tell you what, he's got that move done. Good job from Will Norton there. And Seth Ryder's struggling. That rear end is not happy. Another error through turn 4. And here comes Michael Abrams.
That car really, really loose right now for Ryder, especially in Apex. The wind's still gusting at 7 miles an hour. In that same section we talked about earlier, I think that's really causing a lot of problems for Ryder at this moment of the race.
Going to lose another spot as William Amshoff goes by. Oliveira got by as well, right behind Abrams. and Robert Miller looking to come by him as well. So Seth Ryder getting freight train, stuck on the outside of the racetrack, has been there for about a lap now and has lost about half a dozen spots. Ty Ippolito looking as well. So Seth Ryder needs to get himself in line and get himself back on track and cool himself down a little bit. Oh, that's an aggressive move. He shuts that door in Ippolito's face.
Oh, and look at that move, 3 wide with the lap traffic. Jesse Atchison has shown throughout his week here at this racetrack, he's not going to be patient with some of the moves. He will take you 3 wide to the bottom if you let him.
Even there, Ryder's car was still a little bit overstepping in the rear as he came out of turn 2. It wasn't enough to wobble, but it was enough to be noticeable and cost him momentum onto the back straight. Atchison says, thank you very much, I'll take it. But Ryder doesn't want to give it away. What has happened to this car? Because it is looking an absolute handful and terrible to drive right now.
Whenever they adjusted, it just seems like once the tires started to wear down, it just seemed like the handling just fell off again with how many laps returned at hard pace. This is a real big disaster for Ryder at this point. Might be someone who has to take the undercut now.
Did you see the shot that Ippolito gave to the back of Atchison? Ryder had almost cleared him, and Atchison had no opportunity to back out of it because Ippolito was right up in his rear bumper. And then, out of turn 2, he stood up in front of Ryder. He had to check up. Rear end did not like that, and he all but spun it. And that's going to cost him a bunch.
Cold as the track has been, and we talked about this, some drivers, when the track has gotten cooler, have gotten looser. I think Ryder just hit that point. I think maybe Ippolito maybe had a tiny shot, but not enough to damage it. You can just see on some of these replays how snap loose it's been off turn 2. There's like that little dip. Depending on the handle on your car and depending on the track conditions and the wind, it can dig itself down to that part of the racetrack and snap like that on turn 2 exit.
So he finds himself running an 11th. And he's moving it across, trying to prevent Wesley Pistol from getting to his inside. He'll do it, but he'll overdrive the corner as a result. And Pistol in the end will slip by. And all Ryder's done has cost himself even more time. Hey, look at that.
Where did that come from? Adams now in the top 10. We talked about how the strategy card played perfectly for him to stay on the lead lap. He's now gone into where I think that car is going to be handleable enough and in clean air enough, or rather not in as much traffic to hold on to the top 10 of this race.
Remember, Adams started this race from 35th position, stone cold dead last, was on a terrible strategy, and has found his way now up inside the top 10. It's a great fight back from the driver of the number 31 machine. Abrams and Amshoff here. Abrams, another driver who's fought back well from early issues. The issues being a car that was a bit slow. Got Amshoff for company. Amshoff carried a lot of speed from turn 1 there, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he really tried to send it a little bit, gain some time on corner entry to Apex. Might be one of those cars who are not, or drivers who have a car which doesn't pull as much in the draft, but is really good in the corners. Watch from the back end right here. You can see Abrams able to send it a little bit, but Amshoff able to put more speed in the apex to gain some of the time back as he tries to hold on to his internet cables.
Another replay here. So this is between Will Norton and Patrick Moose. Will Norton's got by inside at turn 4. Very clean move. Very good.
Well, part of that was too, Moose is so loose, he's getting tight on some of the exits. To the point where it's sliding up to the walls. I think that's partly what set that up. The problem is, that lost him a few tenths to the point where Lyon's now broken the draft. He's 1.6 seconds ahead, and this is where he's been dangerous.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, also, Robert Miller has got by Amshoff. So, Abrams given a little bit of room to breathe, but now he's going to have pressure from Miller instead. Remember, Robert Miller was up inside that group of lead cars, Lyon, Norton, and Moose, for a moment when the pit stop cycles for our flurry of cautions.
And we are inside that fuel window, but can still see drivers maybe waiting at least another 10 laps before they try and think about it. Now the question is going to be how hard do some of these drivers fight and claw their way for some of these positions. We've seen how big some of the blocks have been. I think Abrams right now one of those who might just maybe try and break this up. Hope that the damage for the drivers behind slows them down enough to where they can't build up a run before he stops.
35 to go, so you can pit now and comfortably make it home. I'd say you'd even be comfortable with 1 green, white, checkered, maybe even 2. Because of course you do save fuel. You use a bit of fuel, but not much when you're coasting under the caution periods. You don't want to pit now, because if you do, and everyone else stays out under the 15 laps, you're not winning this race. They'll just drive you down and run you down, and that is tight. Miller squeezing on by Michael Abrams.
Might be a mix of a bit tight, trying to give a little bit of later apex to try and push Abrams up the track and make sure these two fight. Exactly what he's done here. Allowed Amshoff to come on through, and now Abrams loses 2 for 1 in 1 straight. You can see right there just how much that force for them to fight there caused them to lose. It's enough, I think, for Miller to try at least break away for a few laps and calm down.
What lap are you earmarking then to see our leaders come in? I'm having a look at Harrison Lyon, trying to figure out when he last pitted. It was lap 107, I believe.
And remember, most of the league drivers pit on that same cycle.
Yeah.
But that point, I'm still here marking the lap 25 mark. May see drivers go as long as 20 to go.
Adams has lost a spot. It's a pistol. Reiter, he stemmed the flow, but he's not coming back. That's the issue.
He's made it clear with some of the moves he did not want to let Ippolito go. I think he feels he's faster than the LD racing machine. And now that they've kind of stabilized a little bit, Ryder, with the balance and the sun's come out and the track's starting to rise again on the track temp, it's kind of balanced that direction. So it's gone the way he needs to. The problem is, he's going to have to deal with someone who's been fairly quick in Austin Johnson pretty soon as we look at the train again for 5th.
So Abrams, we're on board with him. That's Amshoff just in front. Robert Miller has absolutely left these guys for dead. He's checked out. Top of your screen there, that's him. So he's got some good pace. Amshoff and Abrams don't have it. He's 3/10 quicker. He's driving away and driving towards Oliveira, who's 3 seconds up the road. So Amshoff got by thanks to Miller's move. He might not actually have the pace to make that move without assistance from another car. So Abrams will be wanting to get back by him here because he was holding him off until Miller intervened.
Yeah, remember the fellow teammates are still trying to reel back in Nathan Harrison Lyon. They've slowly gained time back. They're now almost 1/10 of a second quicker a lap. So Lyon's starting to fall off Traffic, though, may start to be a factor once again, though, because about half a straightaway up for the race leader, some of the damaged cars, 23rd and 26th, that's Carlisle and Sela, are just up the track and could be a factor in some of these battles, such as this one.
There are 24 cars still running in this race. A bunch got taken out, remember, in that big crash at turn 3. Before then, we had 28 cars running all the lead lap. Now there's 21 lead lap cars.
Looks like the undercut window just opened. Joshua Campbell, one of the Dynamic Autosports machines, electing to come down about 5 laps earlier than estimated. The undercut hasn't worked in his way much of this event, but this might be one of the times to try it with there just being the one stop to go.
Maybe Joshua Adams tries it again. Not to the extremes he tried earlier on in the race. Well, what do you know? He's in. And that may be the first time in my life I've correctly predicted a strategy.
Give or take, yes. But I'm curious how the rest of these drivers play, because the fall off this run hasn't been as dramatic because in part of the amount of rubber buildup. It's only about 1.5, 1.7 seconds give or take. So a lot of these drivers, to praise some of the conversation on the radio, are driving good. Unless
Eddie
you're
Curtis,
Kerner, who wants a caution.
Eddie Kerner's pretty bored. He's just managed to type out the alphabet on his keyboard while he's out there on the racetrack and sent that over to the driver's chat. So he's pretty lonely. He's got 10 seconds to the next car in front, 15 seconds to the next car behind, and, well, this race has taken a bad turn for him. Seth Ryder comes to pit road, not surprised by this. He might take a swing at the car here to try and tighten it up, because it was super loose early on in this stint.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. It had to try it, at the very least, with how loose that car was. But it's groupings like this where the undercut may be the strongest. Don't look now, though. Atchison, on same even set of tires with the car fixed, has gained 2 car lengths a corner entry on these two.
That's just behind Amshoff. Abrams. 6/10 back. Zach Hudson going to make the move on Ippolito as Austin Johnson is down on pit road.
Remember, Hudson went a lap down at one point, but there's Atchison, one of those drivers who elected to fix all the damage after he smacked the right side of the car against the wall coming out of turn 2. But where he's been really making up the pace this entire run has been right here. Sends it about a few meters deeper, able to hit the gas a little bit earlier compared to the cars in front and make it stick. That's an R2 car lengths right there.
Into pit road, this is Will Norton. This is a big pit stop now. First of our, I'd say, contenders to pit. Robert Miller going to come with him. Now, remember Norton and Miller, they benefited well from early pit stops. On that last green flag pit stop, Miller pitted very early and jumped out to the lead for a moment. Norton pitted with Moose, actually jumped him in the lane. So keep an eye on these two. Wyatt and Moose still yet to pit. But surely now they have to respond, Justin.
Well, Lyon responded by going all the way to the end of the fuel tank to lap 41, giving him 2 3-lap pressure tires. But at this point of the race, I don't know if there's enough time you want to sacrifice here. May go one more lap, maybe 2, and then try and counter.
Well, Moose has come in straight away. He doesn't want to give any more time away. That leaves Harrison Lyon with a big gap. Oliveira is also going to come to pit road. Michael Abrams, William Amshoff, they stay out.
Now,
So look for... Go ahead.
I was going to say the curious question is going to be, how will which drivers are going to end up being the ones who try and bank on the caution flag, because it kind of seems something from Abrams' wheelhouse we've seen from some of the races, something that Bolito might try, something Plant may try as well. High risk, high reward.
Exactly right. Now, Lion comes in. Patrick Moose rolls back out onto the racetrack, and Will Norton has jumped him by a country mile. He's gone. There he is. He's blazed past pit exit already. Moose has just got there. 4.5 seconds. Wonder if Moose was still on pit road again.
Yeah, Moose 46 seconds. The lane Will Norton 45.5 plus a faster stop for Norton as well. So again, slow service for Moose in the box as, remember, Lion still chugging down that pit lane, just finished his service. How's he going to cycle out?
Behind Norton. By a lot. Well, this makes things interesting. So Lion has opted to stay out, go the extra couple of laps, and that has given a huge undercut kick to Will Norton, and he holds a comfortable gap. Moose as well, hitting a lap after Norton. A lap undercut on Moose for Lion isn't going to close the gap enough for him. Ippolito and Plant coming to pit road now as well, leaving just a couple drivers still out there. That's Abrams, Jeans, Knoll, Baker.
Want to see if we can listen on board the line, because as soon as he came out of the pit lane, clutched and coasting in 3 and 4. With how many laps to go, high chance they may have underfueled. This time not coasting.
You're taking 4 tyres. What would be the advantage then of underfueling? Because a full tank of fuel is covered by a 4-tyre stop. You cost yourself enough. You end up, I guess, costing yourself if you have to clutch.
It's a strategy a lot of the NASCAR teams use, where you're able to have less weight in the car, and that means you're faster in a straight line, and that has been paramount with this package. As long as you loosen it up to counter that, you're in a good situation. Several teams will underfuel the car if given the chance.
Interesting. It goes against everything I've ever learned as a driver, but I guess that's why I don't drive much anymore. Harrison Lion coasting again and just edged it into the fence as well. He's got a 2.8 second gap to shut down to Will Norton in front. 22 laps to go here at the Brickyard.
I'm thinking with how much he's clutching, coasting here, he might be also thinking about the temps here to try and keep him cool enough to where he can just go flat out for the end of the race once he gets to the draft. Because remember, they can max out the tape with how this package has been this week, up to 80%.
Yeah, coasting again to turn 1. I was just riding on board and listening in with him there. So it's only about a second, but he is definitely using it. So keep an eye on that, as Austin Johnson will get himself up into 10th place ahead of Seth Ryder and Joshua Adams. Abrams, Jeans, and Knoll still yet to pit. So too Baker, but Baker's fallen out of the top 3.
Say his name, he comes down the pit just like that though, Ryan.
Yeah, his strategy was burnt, I think.
I think Baker's strategy's burnt too. He needs a caution now if he wants the strategy to work out for him with how rough his race has been.
I mean, I don't know about Abrams. I think he had a bit of a gap. I thought he would have stayed out, but I thought Baker for sure should have pitted. Jeans and Knoll They're just praying for a caution, because if a caution comes out now, everyone's back in the lane. You see this in real life in NASCAR too. Drivers stay out, they play for a caution, but there comes a point where they go, we're losing more than we're going to gain. I don't know if... I think they've probably just gone past that point.
Yeah, I think Jeans is going to be one that we've seen how rough the race has been at times for Jeans. He's been to the back of the field much of the time, has had damage at times. Has to be in that situation. For Seth, he's got no front clip. It's kind of a see what sticks kind of strategy.
Well, the front bumper isn't going to stick.
Well, yeah. It was lost about, what, 130 laps ago?
Yeah, something close to that.
Looks like those teammates catching right up to him. And mind you, the gap is slowly closing, in part because, again, Lyon's been saving throughout this run so far, waiting for the time to close it up. It's now 1.5.
And there's Norton slicing by Noel. Too easy, pretty much.
Look at that orange car. That's James just about to take the race lead on track as well. This isn't working out how James might have wanted to try at least get the lead, but if he does get a caution in the next 2 laps or so, may keep him inside the top 10.
Harrison Lyon's coming like a lion stalking his prey. Will Norton is going to have to start worrying about that draft he's giving to the NASCAR driver. Is there any way he can defend this? Because Lyon has undoubtedly been the fastest driver of the day.
At this point of the race, I wouldn't be surprised to see a block, but the problem is Lyon's been just so much quicker in the corners. The tires have fallen off and are starting to really light up on Norton.
Down to 2/10. Here we go. Onto the main straight. The move's going to come. Does Norton block? Here comes Lyon at a turn number 4. To the inside. No block from Norton. Back to the lead of the race for Harrison Lyon with 16 laps to go.
And you can see with just how much that car's struggling on corner 8 tree. Norton's not liking how that's handling right now. Still might be able to hold on to second, but might need to be able to have any shot at trying to pass Lyon back here with 15 to go this time.
Even with a yellow, Harrison Lyon's been unflappable off the restarts. No one's been able to challenge him, so if I'm anyone in the field now, I'm worried now that Harrison Lyon's got to the lead. I think Norton is going to have to start worrying about Patrick Moose as well, because he's only 2.3 seconds behind him. As James finally decides enough's enough and he comes to pit road.
Tried as best he could, but didn't get the caution Jeans was looking for, but give credit to Eduardo. This would be one of the team's biggest finishes of 2020 if they can secure this top 5, and even higher if they can take advantage of Miller.
Oliveira started this race from 17th, has been running around the top 10 all day long, and has found himself in a really good spot as we wind down to the end of this one. Robert Miller struggling just a bit now on his tyres. Was one of the first leading contenders to pit on this latest green flag stop, and now suffering as Oliveira down to his inside, going to take that spot away.
For the winning G-force machine. Well, he's starting to fly. A lot of times they've had really rough races in these NIS Opens on Friday nights and in general, but this Portugal-based sim racing team really showing the power. In other news, Kerner still hasn't gotten the caution he needs, and he's coming down.
He's on the lead lap, but he won't be for long after this pit stop. Michael Baker as well. Still hasn't pitted, has fallen all the way back to 25 seconds off the lead. Unless he gets a caution, he'll be going a lap down as well. Still yet to make his final stop, of course. Atchison and Johnson are starting to close up in the battle for P7.
Atchison on the fresher tires in this group. He might be able to run away, but Michael Abrams just behind them. We'd seen him go for the overcut strategy. He's flying. Might not get back to where he was before the pit stops, but might be able to at least, based on the pace and the amount of time left, get up to maybe 6th or 7th.
Yeah. That's only 5 seconds up the road, so certainly a good chance. And he was running about 5th before the pit stop phase. He was running first for a while as part of the overcut strategy, but it'll still be a good result for him if he can get up there. He's got to get by Seth Ryder first, and that's not going to be an issue.
Oh, and Johnson has to pit. This is unscheduled.
So an issue for Johnson then. And he comes to pit road from the top 10 spot.
Not exactly sure why he'd have to come down here. This is huge. If he didn't put enough fuel, that's maybe one thing. Might also be something with the temps. Unreal if you're Johnson. And he just took 2.
2 tires would suggest a splash of fuel.
So put him in the book for needing a caution flag. Let's just say that at this rate, as Abrams still charges.
Caution flag going to be interesting. I think you'd have a split decision on drivers pitting and not pitting.
Possibly. That being, if there's a lot of cars who stay out, that might be the strategy. If there's only a couple, they're sitting ducks. But I wouldn't be surprised to see someone try it, but Baker's tried to stretch this entire run, hoping for the caution. He just got it!
Hey. Caution's out. Oliveira. The culprit? Potentially.
No, it was Johnson on the 2 tires! Just, what in the world?
Right sides gripping more than the lefts. They turn more than the lefts. That results in oversteer. A big snap, and around it goes.
I get why he took 2 to keep himself in the lead lap. I just still don't get why he had to pit on 15 laps into a run.
Well, there was obviously a reason. Could be a myriad of potential issues that forced him to come to pit road. In real life as well. Potentially having to make a fix. Call it a mechanical issue. Like they would have in real life. So, now the caution's out. Well, now we're going to see. Are we going to have that split strategy of drivers pitting and some staying out? Harrison Lyon shadowing to pit road. He's going to come. Norton, Moose. Looks like they're all coming. Everyone.
Gambling. Yeah, no one's gambling. On the bright side, Eddie Curtis just got the lucky dog, so he's probably cheering in that car. Got confirmation, though, on what happened, though, with Johnson. Apparently, when he pit, his car didn't get refueled, and the balance of the car was off once he had the 2 tires.
Makes sense. Now, Michael Abrams, I'm surprised he pitted. I'm surprised Abrams pitted, and in pitting, he's thrown away all the track position he got back. He missed his pit box twice. Patrick Moose, he also missed his pit box.
Just by maybe half a foot, too. And that just lost him 1 spot as well, but... oh boy. Michael Jean stayed out.
Well, he'd only just pitted. He'd pitted after Abrams. So, only been 7 laps. 1 of which under caution. I mean, you've got to take the gamble. Why not? If he pits, he comes out pretty much dead last on the lead lap. So...
if they get an air caution too, say in 3-4 laps, he's got the freshest tires in the field for the finish. To be able to finish higher than where he might have.
Everyone now should have 1 set of tires left. Jeans will have 2. And there'll be a few other discrepancies throughout the field. I am surprised... well, I guess I'm not, now that I think about it. Abrams had been out there for quite some time. He was flying, but it had just been a bit too many laps for him to be able to stay out. Jeans was just in that window. Baker is now... where is he? I can't find him.
19th. 51 seconds damage repair.
So that works out for him.
Yeah.
Now this restart. So Jeans is going to have to be careful not to spit up the rear tires. That might mean that Harrison Lyon goes with him on the outside and they run into turn 1 side by side. Norton's going to be all over the back of Jeans because he'll have fresh tires. Now, before Jeans pitted, he was running last. Thereabouts. On the racetrack. So, don't expect him to win this race. But what he's trying to do is find a benefit based off where he was running. So, a top 10 is a good gamble for him.
Going to be tricky, though, in 7 laps, and if you're White Saddler's spotter, you are shouting at him to try and keep an eye on where these cars are going to be because they're going to try and get to the bottom and fast with how fresher the tires are and how the pace has been for the front runners.
I don't see this as a bad call from Jeans. Whether it is or isn't remains to be seen. Let's find out. 7 laps to go and we come across the stripe. The Brickyard 400 gonna have a grandstand finish. There is no other way than NASCAR iRacing Series. Pace car's off. Jean's gonna hold them. And now he guns it. Green flag is back in the air. We are racing once again at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And a pretty good jump for Michael Jeans.
There goes Lyon just like that on the fresher tires.
Lyon jumps out to the lead of the race. Will Norton trying to follow him. Down the back straight. Jeans will sidestep as everyone dives to his inside. 3 wide behind them. That's going to be tight. Robert Miller through the middle emerges first. Seth Ryder down low and Eduardo Oliveira up top. And Miller forces his way to the inside of Jeans.
Yeah, Jeans trying to arc it down. Here comes his teammate Seth Ryder on the fresher tires. And Eduardo now giving him the push to try and get clear.
He's losing a lot of spots very quickly on those tires. being up top isn't helping either. That was Oliveira. His car gets out sideways. That's going to give some reprieve to Jeans. And Oliveira is going to have everyone stacked up behind him.
Look at the moves from Adams, though, right behind him. Really bumping his way to the top as here comes the battle now in front of them for second.
That's Patrick Moose up to second place. As into turn 3, they were 3 wide for a moment. Atchison on the inside of Pistol, still there. As Oliveira was able to clear. Takes that spot away. 5 laps to go. Harrison Lyon with 0.8 of a second over the field.
And Miller now is starting to show the nose. New fastest lap of the race. He wants to try and finish in the podium.
Michael Jean still running 6th. Now Oliveira is going to have another crack at him as well, as Robert Miller breezes by Will Norton. Joshua Adams in 9th. Looking to the inside of Atchison. That's right behind Oliveira, making the move on Jeans as well. 2 by 2, 3 deep, down the main straight.
And 4 deep when you include the grouping just a half a second behind. Everybody wanting to get these spots. But remember, valuable iRatings on the line, valuable positions on the line, valuable points on the line in this closing stages. You're fighting for everything you got to this point.
Oliveira able to clear. Jeans now, again, stuck on the outside. For these old tyres to work, he needs to be on the racing line. Gonna get freight train if he gets stuck up here again, just like the initial jump. Adams will go by. Abrams will go by. Now he will find a gap in line. Still, though, it's a net gain from where he was running earlier.
Yeah, and Atchison has just gone completely backwards throughout this run. Something's really going on with that 3 machine. Already shuffled back to 11th as already the leaders trying to close in. 3 to go.
A 10th quicker the last 2 laps. So Patrick Moose on Harrison Lyon. Can he get within the slipstream range and close the gap down? There's the live gap. Remember that poor pit stop for Moose. That might cost him. He would have already been second for the restart had he not made that error. Or third for the restart, sorry, behind Lyon.
Oh, trouble behind them. Jeans is spinning.
We stay green as Jeans rejoins. Looks like Seth Knowles slow as well, so no caution flies. The gap is under half a second now. We'll do a replay of that post-race. Patrick Moose, a 50.696. Harrison Lyon, a 50.852.
This might be close. Moose has been able to time this up perfectly. Lyon's still been in the situation to just be able to save.
He's in the draft now too. So the gap's going to close rapidly on this final lap. They're going to come across the line here into the white flag. 1 lap to go. It's Harrison Lyon, the lead. Patrick Moose is closing, a 1/4 of a second. Now Lyon moves it over, trying to shake that draft. Final lap at the Brickyard.
This might come down to the final corner. Moose is going to need the perfect run to be able to get side by side by the corner entries.
Out of turn 2, this is crucial. Moose needs to launch well. Down the back straight. He's going to follow Lyon as he snakes his way down the straight, trying to get rid of that draft that he's giving. And the hole he's punching in the air for Patrick Moose. He's still got 2 tenths in hand as the dirty air now plays a factor for Moose. Through turn 4 for the final time. Harrison Lyon, fastest car of the day, and it's going to serve him well. From the back to the front, Harrison Lyon going to win at the Brickyard 400. He gets his name on the record books.
Absolute domination. Once more. Had the fastest car. Whatever that team did after what happened on Tuesday, they built a rocket. Unbelievable how quick that car was in a straight line and how stable it was, it seemed, in the corner.
The car seemed fast, no matter where it was. On the racetrack, clean air, dirty air, corners and straights. No surprise to see him taking that car to victory lane today at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Patrick Moose comes up just shy in the end. And podium. Third place was Robert Miller. Let's take a look at our full results at the end of close to 3 hours racing at Indianapolis, the NASCAR iRacing Series. The winning margin in the end for Moose, for Lion over Moose, was 0.3 of a second. Robert Miller home in third. Will Norton and Seth Ryder making up your top 5. And then Eduardo Oliveira, Joshua Adams coming home in 7th. Great recovery from him. So too from Abrams in 8th. Wesley Pistol and Ty Ippolito rounding out your top 10.
Jesse Atchison fell back to 11th after the final restart. Johan Jarvie up to 12th position. Remember, had trouble much of the race, was as far back as in the 30s, in the late 20s. Joseph Plant able to finish in 13th, William Armshoff in 14th, Joshua Campbell in 15th, with Zach Hudson having a quiet race in 16th spot. 17th goes to Michael Baker after all the damage repair on the final stop. Eddie Kerner was a contender for the top 5 before getting involved in trouble in the midway part of the race. He finishes in 18th. Michael Jeans took a gamble. It didn't pay off. He got shuffled to 19th after some of the contact, including 3 wide into turn 3, which in part led to the spin. And Austin Johnson, after his spin to bring out the late race caution, 1 lap down, is in 20th.
Will Hite 22nd, and the first of the retirements. Try and keep your eyes on the screen. Everyone else retiring from this race with issues at some point. Been a wild race as always. And now we are going to take a look and have a chat to some of our race winners. Our race winner. Have a chat to Nathan Harrison Lyon. Congratulations. That was a stunning victory.
Yeah, that was fun. That was pretty close there. A few more laps and Patrick would probably got to me and probably could have gotten around me. I was super tight there at the end.
Yeah, you seem to be struggling very late on after pretty much dominating all the race, coming from the back to the top of the field very early. It seemed like your car was quick no matter where it was on the racetrack. We highlighted, obviously, maybe your struggles on Tuesday night in the NASCAR series. Were there many setup changes heading into today's race?
Yeah, I did a few things just to get some more turn to the car, but not really much. Just a little bit of track part adjustment. That's about it. Same car from Tuesday.
Worked pretty well for you. How did traffic go out there today, trying to navigate the dirty air and, the entire field you had to pass?
Yeah, my car was insanely tight and dirty air. It was really good in clean air, but when I got behind someone, I ended up just scrubbing off the right front just too much just because I didn't have any turn at all. But once it got in clean air, it was definitely pretty quick, handled very well.
Getting a win at the Brickyard, one of the crown jewel races of the season. Surely this is one of the races at the start of the year you put down in your calendar as this is one to win. So how does it feel to get that victory?
Feels good. I haven't won here. Haven't really done any races here before except for last year's Coke race, and I think I did one in 2018. But other than that, I haven't really done anything here. So this is one of the tracks that I wanted to win at. It's one of the crown jewel events, so it's one of those I can check off. I really just need to get Daytona now, and that'll be it.
Daytona's coming up in a few weeks. Maybe we can get that then. I'll have a chat to you again. Before we let you go, who do you want to thank for getting it done? Sponsors and people alike.
Yeah, everyone at NASCAR iRacing, Coca-Cola. You guys for doing the broadcast as well on Friday nights. I've won at Roush Fenway, Dead Zone Racing, Houston Hammer, and Dustin Linger for the amazing car. Of course, Cosma and Splash and Goes for painting the awesome replicas you see on my car every single week in the Coke Series.
Good job. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Aiden.
That was Harrison Lyon coming home as your race winner. Now Justin standing by with our second place skater, Patrick Moose.
Yes, indeed, Patrick. First things first, interesting race with lots of different long runs and short runs. How are you feeling coming on second tonight?
Yeah, I was feeling strong, had a good setup all race.
Now talk us through that final run first off, because Nathan Harrison Lyon, just told us that his car was on the tight side. What's going through your head as you were slowly reeling him on in the closing stages of that 7-lap shootout?
I was just trying not to make a mistake. My car was really loose on the short runs. I was just trying not to hold on to it.
How difficult was it to try and keep your composure and keep your stamina and keep up the pace over a 100% distance race, 160 laps, just 5 cautions, mind you, over the span of 3 hours?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to keep your focus, have to be focused all race, not make mistakes. Obviously a long race.
Yes, but in some cases you did tap the wall. How was your car throughout the night, with and without the damage?
Even with the tap, it didn't do much. It still felt.
Okay, next race for NIS goes off to the newer Kentucky, the newest scan, in fact, for Kentucky on the iRacing service. Your thoughts?
It'll be a fun race. I like it. It's very fast, very tough track.
Anyone you want to thank before I let you go?
Just like to thank everyone at Nexus, Robert and James especially, for building these amazing sets.
Congratulations on the P2, Patrick.
Thank you.
Patrick Moose, a man of few words, but a man with a fast car in a fast run tonight, Ryan.
It certainly was. And let's finish up our podium with Robert Miller coming home in third place today. Was up towards the front for most of this one. How did it feel?
I felt good for once. I had an eventful race for me. I had a couple of seconds optional on the right side, and that definitely hurt the car in the straights, and I was fighting with traffic. That dirty air is a big thing here. It was definitely obvious. You could save tires and everything being out front.
Talk us through your strategy then, because we had some massive green flag stints over the course of this race. At one point, you cycled out with the race leaders, Lion, Moose, and co. And a caution came out pretty close after that, I think, which sort of ruined that. But how'd your strategy play out? Was it as planned?
Yeah, it was how I wanted to go. I just wanted to get away from some of the dirty air, get some track cleaned, and see if I can't jump a spot or two and see how it played out from there. I was more thinking really long run, see if I can't kind of take advantage of the pit stops, but the caution came out and ruined that, I suppose.
Cautions, you always plan for them, but they'll never come when you want them. So, obviously, works well. You still come home in third. Late race restart spiced things up. How'd the setup work for you today? Obviously, you said you were planning for long run. Obviously, the car geared towards that. So, how did that affect you with those late race restarts?
Oh, we just do some adjustments, and really that we know that'll basically get the car to handle where we need it to be, and off it goes. I did it before earlier this week on Monday, in that same kind of restart window, and I finished second in the peak, basically the Coke field, and that was a great race for me. So ended up working well for me again this time.
Certainly did. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on picking up that podium. Who do you want to thank for getting it done?
Nexus Esports, of course. Hudson for bringing me around. I can't thank him enough. James Mullins and Moose, Patrick Moose, of course. He's a new guy, but he's helped us out so much. We've been working on these sets to death, and I'm just glad our time's starting to pay off. So those three, Seth Noodle, of course, Eddie Kerner for being my guy. So.
Oh, thank you very much, and congratulations once again on a good drive today.
I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good one.
You too. That was Robert Miller coming home in third. What are your final thoughts on today's race, Justin?
In the end, the mixture of speed and strategy came to play, and that in part led to Harrison Lyon leading so many laps, 78 total laps led for the number 7 machine tonight. As we've seen, the longer the runs And the better the setup for the long run, the faster the drivers will go. And we've seen that tonight. Nathan Lyon showed that car he had for Tuesday night really darn good. The Nexus machines, really darn good. But give credit to some of the underdogs who kept their cars clean throughout the night and struggled for half the race. Seth Ryder came away with the top 5. Eduardo Oliveira with one of his biggest finishes for his entire team in a top split I've seen from that organization. Michael Abrams with a top 10 on an oval. And Ty Polito, a top 10 for AOD Racing for the first time in a little while, to say the very least. Overall, the strong performances and the cleanest cars rose up to the top tonight.
Indeed they did, as they always do in the NASCAR iRacing series. We'll be back next week at Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time for the next edition of this race live on the iRacing Esports Network, brought to you by SimSpeed TV. Make sure you hit subscribe so as to stay up to date with all of the broadcasts across every day of the week from a variety of different series. Go ahead and subscribe to SimSpeed TV while you're at it as well on YouTube. Find SimSpeed Esports Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. From tonight, though, we say goodnight. Thank you for joining us. From myself, Ryan Jones, Justin Prince alongside me, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. Good night. We'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness! Half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no! That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?